the 4-yard line. It's 3rd down and 6. Dart. Wells. Touchdown, Juice Wells.
This is 365 Sports, powered by SicEm365.com.
Big 3rd down, and a lob to the end zone. It's a 50-50 ball for Chase Lane. He's got it for the touchdown.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Miller motions out. Milroe just takes off. Guess what? Quarterback run. Jalen Milroe to spread. Number 4 with his 4th rushing touchdown. 72 yards. A dagger.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
For the lead for BYU. Snap, hold, kick, on the way. Kick is good!
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
This game was absolutely stolen from us. We were excited about being in Big 12, but tonight I am not. We won this game. Someone else stole it from us.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, here we go on this Thursday afternoon. Hope you've had a really good day. 365 Sports will take you up until about, I guess it's about 6 o'clock. A little bit sometimes right before that, a little bit after that. Earlier the week, we were on till like 6:15. I'm David Smoak, and to my right with the BYU helmet near him is Craig Smoak. And to my left with the 365 Sports, God, I love that color too. 365 Sports helmet. Paul, who's the one that provided that?
That is Green Gridiron.
Green Gridiron, and we appreciate all of you who are watching or listening to us in the various ways, whether on Twitter and live at 365 Sports YT, on SicEm 365, the app, and you can watch or listen to us there. And then, of course, right here, if you are with our studio show, also on 365 Sports on YouTube. So we have a lot to get to. We're going to hear from former Colorado and NFL lineman Matt McChesney. He's always fun. We had him on a couple of different times earlier this year. Rod Babers, former Texas great, on the horn in Austin. He'll be on with us today. Craig and Paul have Off the Radar and Top 5. We'll also hear from Mickey Spagnola, DallasCowboys.com. They have a Monday night game coming up against the Texans. And we're going to have a discussion about NIL. We'll get to exactly what the question will be and hopefully get feedback from you in the chat room. We'll have the Big 12 Bullsby pod at about 3:40. All right, let's start with this. So there has been some, and, we hear about how sometimes there's a narrative when it comes to teams that are not the Blue Bloods. But if they play. Here's one, there has been a few, there have been comments, and there's been like, whoa, who has Texas beaten? Actually, if you look inside the top 25 or whatever, nobody. But this is a good point by CJ. It's probably the only time in a 140-year history of the sport, college football, where a schedule of Michigan, Georgia, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Florida, and Texas A&M, and no FCS teams as a non-conference game, is being widely considered, I don't know about widely, but considered as the easiest schedule of the season. Well, it is based on who those teams were this year or who they have been this year, and the one game Georgia is the one they lost at home. Florida and Arkansas have not been all that really relevant in the last, 8 to 10 years or so, but they still have been teams that have had some success. Does this in any way kind of neuter anything? Well, they haven't played anybody or haven't beaten anybody.
Look, there's two. They haven't played anybody or beaten anybody, and then they haven't scheduled anybody. This is not Texas's fault. The fact that Michigan had a tremendous drop-off, Georgia's still good, but Oklahoma's not good, Arkansas's average, Florida's average, A&M's good, but the fact that three of those 6 teams are average at best is not Texas's fault. That's those teams' fault. I do think that, maybe you need to weigh that when it comes to seeding. But outside of Georgia, they've beaten everybody who's in front of them, right? So, maybe you lower their seed, but I don't think it's a fair argument in this case against Texas. Now, if you look at other teams who avoid scheduling like Texas does and who aren't in the conference like the SEC, then I do think that you need to take maybe that into consideration, but this is not Texas's fault.
Yeah, I don't know. They're ranked the number 3 team in the country, so who cares? Who cares what Aggie fan 24 on Twitter is saying, I guess, about the schedule, but I guess, there's been a lot of talk about it, and I don't know. I don't think it's really been – I guess maybe in Texas circles it's been a big deal, but to me, we've all acknowledged that UT's schedule compared to Oklahoma's was relatively light on paper to begin with, right? They got the easier draw of the 2 teams on paper. I think that's probably bore out. I haven't gone back to really compare it because I haven't really spent a lot of time thinking about Texas' schedule. I do think it hasn't been as daunting as it initially looked on paper because Michigan is nowhere near the team that you thought they were going to be. They were preseason top 10 guys.
I know.
When Texas played them. They are a absolute dumpster fire at the moment and not really a team that many people are spending too much time on. They're going to probably go to a bowl game, but, outside of that, it's not really a season worth talking about. So that game didn't turn out to be as much of a big deal as you'd expect it to be. The Oklahoma game obviously was not even a close contest whatsoever. Then they had the close call with Georgia, which, was their biggest test and the test that they didn't pass. So Vandy's a better game than was expected to be, so that's actually been a boost. But, when you're destroying people and when nobody's really giving you a run for your money, it's made to look pretty easy, and they've had a couple of close calls this entire year, and that's it. And they've come in the last couple of weeks, or the last 3 weeks. So I just think people are kind of ready to see Texas get tested. The thing that's jumped out to me is how all these teams joined, and we kind of saw the foreshadowing for this, but while we've had these weekends with big games, there's a lot of schedules you look at and go damn, they play 2 teams the entire year, Indiana or Texas, or I think you can give other examples. Penn's, there's just, I don't know. It just feels like there's a couple big games for everybody. And I guess it's always sort of been that way, but especially in this playoff era and everybody, these super conferences, it's actually, are we playing less good teams throughout the schedule because the conferences are bigger? So you're not running into each other as much? That's kind of how it feels to me, at least, because I am waiting for every week to be this challenge, and it's not necessarily panned out that way.
Well, I think that there have been some great weekends of college football, but at the same time, you might be right because it's watered down in a little bit. Some teams get the algorithm that helps them, and some of them not. I'm not, and I never have really looked at this year with Texas. The one team they played that this year is really good, Georgia beat them in Austin, but the other, that's not their fault. In fact, when that schedule came out, I think a lot of people looked at Florida's schedule. A lot of people looked at Oklahoma's schedule. And I saw our good friend Kelly Ratings, and he actually said when the schedules all came out, everybody thought Florida had the most difficult schedule. And it still has been really difficult. But based on where are people now and who they have been this year, Oklahoma's schedule is now ranked as the most difficult, and it was among the most difficult in the first place. So there we are. Listen, one thing I know about UT, and there's a lot of people that either love them or you hate them or you're annoyed by them or whatever. They are not afraid to put together a non-conference schedule. They always want to try to have 1 or 2 people who are schools from Texas. Whether that changes in the future, that includes former Big 12 brethren, I don't know. They always are going to play a high-level team, whether it's Notre Dame or if it's Tennessee or if it's LSU or whoever, in this case Michigan, Alabama the last couple of years. And on top of that, they're usually going to play Oklahoma as a non-conference game. Well, that's now a conference game. Their non-conference schedule is going to have a UTSA or someone else like that from Texas. They have never been afraid to have a very nice non-conference schedule. It's not their fault that Michigan did not hold up their end of the bargain. All right, so there we are with that. Now, here's a Brett McMurphy note. Brett McMurphy with this one here today. Since 1992, since the first Bowl Coalition title game, national champion and the title game loser, in other words, the 2 finalists, have never both the following year finished 500 or worse. Michigan and Washington are now 5-5. Michigan closes against Northwestern and then at Ohio State. Washington plays UCLA and then at Oregon. So it looks like they're going to both, you would think that both of them are going to go 1-1 and finish at 6-6.
Yeah, that's how it looks. I mean,
although that's not a guarantee with Washington because UCLA's playing pretty well, not just because they beat Nebraska. They have been playing a lot better.
Share your trauma, Smokey. It's okay.
It's there. It's going to always be there.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's likely that they're both going to be 6-6. And look, Michigan, I'll tell you this. I'm very impressed that Sharon Moore, without a quarterback, is able to win 6 games. That's how talented the defense was and some of the other players because it's been I don't know if there's anything worse in space than a black hole that you can go into, but it's been worse than that at quarterback for Michigan. So yeah, they're going to probably wind up 6-6 and do that same with Washington. But Washington, it shouldn't be too surprised when the coaching staff's all gone, the entire roster is all gone. Michigan, half the coaching staff is gone. J.J. McCarthy's gone. A couple of key other players are gone. So it shouldn't be that surprising that they're not that good. For Michigan, it's very surprising to me that they don't have it. They didn't, that they thought any of these 3 quarterbacks were going to rise to the level of being competitive in the Big Ten and didn't get in the portal and at least get somebody that was better.
Yeah, well, they're going to do that. That's a story we're going to have in a minute, Craig. Mm-hmm. All right, we'll go straight to that. We'll have that story about Michigan and a possible quarterback in a minute. So Dave Aranda and Baylor will play in Morgantown. They're 0-6 there. It has now become, I don't say modern day, because the series only began back in 2010. But Baylor's 0-6 there, and they've had 70-63. They've also had a chance when they were up right before halftime. It looked like they were playing about as well as they could, and Blake Shapen had a ball get loose as he was moving out of the pocket, and a scoop and score West Virginia. They went on to win. But that's been a tough place for them to win. Also, despite whatever was at 2-4, Baylor mathematically, along with a lot of teams in the Big 12, is not out of it. Now, eventually things happen with wins and losses among others that might just knock you out of it. They aren't going to play for the Big 12 title, and you can record that and play it back if that ever miracle happens this year. But here's Dave Aranda when he was asked about whether or not he even brings that up, not just a bowl possibility where they need to win one more game out of 3, but also the fact that they're still mathematically not eliminated from a Big 12 championship game.
Look at the Big 12, and it's just, massive teams kind of fighting for everybody's still alive. Is that a positive? Do you talk to the team about that, where it's like, things fall our way, we could still achieve some really big things? How much do you discuss that with the team?
Not a lot. The mountains and the stairs and all that, to maybe some dismay, I still show that, and it's like, this is the step we got to take, right? And so consistency for us, right, regardless of praise or criticism, right, our effort and our attention to detail is the same, right? And it's a level of mastery we're trying to get to. And regardless of kind of the circumstance or the point in the game and any of those things is what we're trying to get to. I think to kind of do stuff, to kind of show people stuff, I think that's one level of all of it. But to do it, whether it's, raining or sun shining or storming or whatever, is a whole other one. And so we're trying to get to that phase of it. At the weak feel, throughout these last couple of weeks with the wins have been just kind of businesslike, kind of focused. I felt that today too, coming back. And sometimes in the past, coming off a bye, when you've been out for a couple of days, to kind of be back, you don't have that feeling. But it was very much that feeling. So it feels good.
All right, that's Dave Aranda when asked on Monday at his media session about that they're mathematically not out of it. But there's a bunch of teams that are not mathematically out of it, which makes the conference kind of fun. Do you feel like, Paul, that is even something you should bring up? Oh. Craig, the bowl game, I think players aren't dumb. They know you got to get to 6 because they surely know they didn't get close to that last year.
No, I mean, I don't think you need to talk about the Big 12 championship game until you're standing there in week 12 going, oh, okay, or the 12th game going, okay, if we win this one, then we've got a shot. Their shot is outside right now, so yeah, they're still alive for it, and the Big 12 keeps putting that out, and that's fine. But realistically, there's 4 teams that have a shot at it, not 12.
I think you probably take it one game at a time, but I'm not a coach, and I don't know that locker room or that team like he does. So if it's a team that's able to handle that kind of thing well, then, yeah, you put it in front of them. If they're not, they get overwhelmed by expectations like last year's team that folded like a wet napkin whenever you'd start to build up a game, then you probably don't bring it up to that team. But this one seems like they've been able to handle the pressure-type stuff pretty well, going on the road. They talk about streaks and haven't beat this team in this long and things like that. That last year's team probably just withers under. This year's team has embraced it and liked that challenge. So I think, again, it probably depends on just how you see that locker room. Are they motivated by those things, or do they get overwhelmed by those things? And even though I think this team is motivated by those things, he knows better. So they've been taking it 1 week at a time. That seems to have worked well for them. And I mean, the thing is if you win this week, then you have better chances possibly, and then you win the week after that, and you just kind of see where it falls. But I don't think you put too much emphasis on it because, like Paul said, it's a very outside shot at this point in time. But I don't know if he feels like it gives him a little extra gas in their tank, then go for it. Only he really knows how his team responds to those things.
Yeah, you're right about last year's team, or even near the end of the 2022 season. Every time you thought they were going to kind of get over that nudge over the top because they were 5-2, ended up 6-7. It was a disaster down the stretch.
But they have to get bowl eligible. I mean, that is obviously the number one thing. You have 3 games to win 1. And if you don't do that, then all the goodwill you built up the last 3 weeks, the last month actually, 3 wins and a bye week, and a really interesting combination of having beaten a rival in Texas Tech at their place convincingly, having beat a rival in TCU who you never beat at your place, and to beat them in walk-off fashion, which you never seemingly do, and to beat Oklahoma State, who's given you plenty of problems in the regular season. To do that 3 consecutive games, I don't care what shape those teams were in. And in the case of 2 of the 3, they're actually in similar shape. Only Oklahoma State's down more than normal. I think that was a remarkable little run, knowing Baylor's history. But if you don't make a bowl game, then that's a fun little moment to look back on, but you briefly talk about it rather than really dwell on it because it ultimately didn't mean anything. It meant like a fun little stretch, but it didn't amount to anything. So they've got to ensure that those wins mean something, and that means going and winning at least a game in the next 3. I think as much of a house of horrors as Morgantown has been, that if you were going to go pop West Virginia right now, much like winning in Stillwater, now's the time to do it because there's a combination of fan negativity and uncertainty. It's not like they're rolling and everybody's like Morgantown's just jam-packed and ready to rock on for Neil Brown. It's like quite the opposite, even though they know there's still things out there for them to win. But they're vulnerable is my point, and I think you can go out there and get them if you play the way you played over the last month. So I'm very intrigued by Saturday, and if they win Saturday, then I mean, talk about a hell of a run for Dave Aranda that would really shut up quite a few people, I would think, because he'd have done a lot of things in a short amount of time that they'd never done or haven't done in a really long time.
It'd be a hell of a surge towards the end of the year, and West Virginia's trying to create their own because remember now they've won a couple of games in a row themselves.
They're just in a weird spot though. Like they're it's like, yay, we won, but we still want the head coach fired. You know what I mean? And that's not everybody in that fan base, but that's a lot of people in that fan base. And so I just think it's a weird situation they're in where it's like probably the people who, when Baylor started winning a couple games, they're like, hell yeah, oh wait, but we want Aranda fired. So what do we do here? What do we cheer or do we get mad? I think that's the same thing for West Virginia fans that wanted Neil Brown gone. It's like, oh, we won. Oh, damn, does that actually help him? So go take advantage of that kind of puzzling atmosphere.
Yeah, this is a name of the thread that at least as last I looked, I just put it up on my website, on my laptop. First topic underneath those that are pinned at the top, which are usually columns and videos and whatever else. Do you think Aranda has already earned another year? And, of course, there's like 5,000 people that have read it and 180 or so who have commented on it, and it goes in different directions. If they were to lose the last 3, all bets are off. All bets are off. There's even thoughts that if they don't win 2 of the last 3, that might not be enough. But
I think that's ridiculous.
I do too.
I think it's ridiculous.
If they get to a bowl game after being 2-4 with wins against Texas Tech on the road and then getting the rival finally in TCU at home is a big deal. So I don't know who They're going to beat the last 3 weeks. All of them seem like they could win or lose those games, like a lot of games that we have remaining in the Big 12 among various teams.
Well, West Virginia or Baylor are getting bowl eligible, and that's going to be a big deal for both coaches. They're the 2 that came in on the hottest of seats in the entire league. Really the only 2 that were on hot seats entering this season. Everybody else was like new or new enough that it didn't really matter, even though Brent Brennan's challenging that entire theory apparently. But, yeah, those 2 are still kind of in that weird no man's land in terms of really knowing what their future holds. And somebody, whoever wins this weekend, is going to get a 6th win. And for West Virginia, that would be 3 in a row. Mm-hmm. For Baylor, that'd be 4 in a row. Yeah. So somebody's going to be like riding red hot off this weekend, even if it doesn't necessarily feel that way overall. That's what's the reality. That's what the reality will be, is somebody will be on a really good streak and be heading to the postseason. So that's a big game for both teams.
Yeah, it is. And look, if there's still people out there holding out hope that Dave Aranda is going to get fired, I would go ahead and at least put it in a box to put away on a shelf for a little while, because if and barring a tremendous collapse and losing these last 3, I just don't see that happening. And I don't see the way they're playing them losing these last 3. Now, do they go 2-1? Yeah, okay. Do they go 1-2? Maybe. I just don't see them going 0-3.
I agree. We all are asked by Levi to predict the upcoming games, and all of us have put our predictions in, and they'll put that up on the site sometime tomorrow morning. But I don't know of any game that's a gimme. But I also don't know any of the games that they should not have a good chance to win if they play how they have played in the last 3 weeks to get themselves above 500 after 2-4. Tennessee quarterback concussion. This has been a story for quite a bit of this week. Listed as questionable. That's the last I saw. That was late yesterday evening. Brandon Marcello saying that now this can change today. This could change by the end of the day, could change by Saturday. But Tennessee and Georgia playing this weekend, and how much of a break would that be for Georgia if Nico's not available for that game? And can Tennessee win that game without him?
I think they can, because their defense is good. They can run the ball. Look, I know Jackson Dart was playing for Ole Miss, but a lot of people weren't, and they still beat Georgia. So I think they can. I wouldn't pick them to, but I think they can, although I think Nico makes a huge difference in the game. If he can't go, then things should be different. But they still have Dylan Sampson. They still have some good wide receivers, and their defense is really excellent. And if Carson Beck keeps turning the ball over or playing as uneven as he is, then, yeah, they've got a chance for sure.
Nico who?
Malieva.
That's your slick. Nico. Yeah, no, I don't do the same thing.
Tennessee quarterback.
I got the Navy coach.
Yeah,
now it's San Jose State.
I had to call it out. I'm sorry, but I just know that Iamaleava, he's a tough one to just rattle off for sure. For me too. I have to sit there but I know Nico.
Okay, you're right.
Yeah.
And I did not have time today. Now I nailed Ken, but I did not.
Nia Matalolo.
I knew that. But I did not have chance because I've been running around crazy today, and I did not have chance to listen to it and also write it out phonetically. But Nico.
Iamaleava.
Yeah, him. And he may not play against Georgia on Saturday.
Well, yeah, that'd obviously be a big deal. He hasn't just set the world on fire like you predicted when you started hearing about the money he was making as a high school prospect. But he's been solid, and they're obviously a very good team and a team that's right there in the thick of the CFP, and this is a huge, massive game. So, yeah, that's big that, his status is even, being a question. But I think that Tennessee and Josh Heupel have had a really good run, and obviously you're going to have some big things to say down the stretch. And with Georgia, they can't afford another loss. As much as you're already getting that, a 3-loss SEC team, if Georgia, loses another game, I think that's pretty much it for them. It has to be, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, there's no way to spin. Well, I know it's 3 losses, but
if anybody has a conscience, if they have a conscience, they have to realize that 3 losses, no matter who they're against or whoever you've beaten, has to pretty much take you out of the equation. Yeah. Eventually, it's about the wins, how many games you win, no matter the games that you lose.
Yeah, so to me, that's an elimination game for Georgia, and then for Tennessee, it would put them, if they were to lose, on that that line as well, where they would have no room for error either with a second loss. So, we don't quite know how the 2 and 3 losses are going to be viewed, but we already know that Heather Dinich and the committee are greasing everybody up for a 3-loss SEC team. So be prepared for that possibility. But this one right here would seemingly be an elimination-style game, most likely.
And, yes, they beat Texas, who may be the best team in the country. We don't know, and they beat them on the road. But they have not looked – if you want to talk about Ward Manuel's eye test, yeah, Georgia has the eye test. But there's something missing with what they're doing on offense from their quarterback to everything else. By the way, I actually, because I think I sent out that tweet yesterday evening, I have it phonetically spelled on this piece of paper, and I just panicked. Imaliava.
Yeah.
I had it. I just panicked. I got to admit that.
But it's all right.
What?
Maliava.
Maliava.
Okay, well, that's why I didn't read. That's why I didn't.
Michigan. I'm glad you did that.
Michigan is prepared to offer Garrett Ross's Go Tigers commit, Bryce Underwood. And this is a report from the Wolverine on 3. This covers Michigan. I don't know if these numbers are ever true because we don't know. But offering him what is reported to be $10.5 million over 4 years. I would think that Dave Portnoy is probably in the middle of this too, because remember what he has said.
No, he definitely is.
Okay, all right, $10.5 million. Garrett, do you believe that?
I believe the offer's out there. I also believe that LSU has been waiting for this and that they have a little stash money themselves for a counter, personally. That's what the word is in Baton Rouge.
Really?
Yes.
You're an insider.
They taking that from the women's basketball pool?
Is that
no, it's not the women's basketball pool.
Is that from the casinos near the Mississippi River?
That's from Sunny Ship at 247.
All right, well, I'm sure LSU has money too now.
Now, look, this is going to test the Brian Kelly, we don't get in bidding wars comment that he made.
That's what happens when your feet are suddenly to the fire.
Yeah. No. Like he's just said, look, we don't go to bidding wars. We're LSU, blah, blah, blah. Then all of a sudden, Bryce Underwood gets offered almost $11 million. And then he's going to go to that collective. And he's like, hey, listen, I don't care what accent I have to speak in or how many stupid pictures I'm going to take. I'll do whatever you need, but we cannot let this guy go to Michigan. Do we have a media mogul here who can, go toe-to-toe with Portnoy?
I got a feeling there's plenty of money, plenty of cash. A lot of it that's probably unreported cash in New Orleans, Louisiana.
Oh, yeah.
Or Baton Rouge, New Orleans, Louisiana.
It doesn't have to be underreported, though.
No, not anymore.
It's
no.
like why hide it? You can just go and throw it out there, and clearly people are throwing out numbers. That's where this whole report comes from. So that's coming from somebody, whether people attached to the schools or the Underwood family. So, that's the era that we live in. I don't know how we went from $100 handshakes to $10.5 million over 4 years so quickly, but I kind of have an idea because it was the NCAA just sitting on their hands for 3 decades doing nothing, 4 or 5 decades maybe even. That's where we are now. So I'm sort of taken aback when I see that number, but for a millisecond, because we already did this with Nico with the $7 million.
Maliava.
No, we did this though with him, a year ago, right? Or was that 2 years ago at this point? So those high tags were already kind of being bandied about. It's only going to go higher, like everything else, and so there will be somebody named, Jimmy Smith in a couple of years who's getting $15 million offered by USC or something. I mean, that's what we're ramping up towards, and ultimately maybe these all become professional contracts that get reported in whatever the new era looks like, in the next 5 to 10 years. But it is weird to kind of see that, and yet not surprising at all. And if you tell me that's the going rate for a quarterback these days, I'm inclined to believe you because I don't know otherwise, and that sounds like it's probably pretty reasonable for 4 years, even though a guy like this, you're probably not expecting he's going to see the length of this contract. The whole point is he probably won't be there for 4 years, but you hope you get the bang for your buck.
Yeah, I think there's going to be an NFL quarterback that wants to enter the transfer portal, go back and play college football.
Why do you think Diego Pavia is trying to get another year?
Yeah.
It's not because he's trying to improve for the NFL, of which he will not be a member most likely. It's because he sees the money he can make in college, and he knows that he's not going to make anywhere close after he runs out of eligibility. So, he got into the SEC all of a sudden, started beating Alabama. He's like, oh, damn, I just hit the lottery, and I got to leave here soon? I want to stay as long as I possibly can because I'm not making this with whatever degree I have.
Will he be drafted?
I don't think so
he
at
won't
all.
be,
No.
He won't be drafted. I think.
You think he will be drafted?
No, I don't think he will be.
Okay.
I think he.
Greg said no, too.
I think he would be amazing in the CFL. In 3 downs. I think in those systems they've got to play.
I think he's got enough moxie or whatever, and I know it comes down to what they want, but I would think that he wouldn't be a bad guy to have on your roster. Now, I'm not saying because he's a competitor and all that, because everyone is, but I just feel like maybe he's just got enough of that in his neck where he might
Like
be
Baker
able to,
Mayfield or something?
Mayfield is a very good, it's a great analogy.
He's just gritty.
Yeah, I never thought Baker Mayfield would be as good as he is in the NFL, and he's gotten better after he's had to take a couple of lumps. He was okay, first round overall pick, but Baker Mayfield's having a hell of a year for Tampa Bay. I never thought Kyler Murray would be as good as he is, although there's some ups and downs, but he just does it no matter what level. If there was a higher level in the NFL, he would do that there too. John Mateer, Texas kid, went from Little Elm High School. He has a 7-year figure from an unnamed team, according to Paul Sorensen, who covers Washington State. There's another one of these that is out there, with Mateer having a really nice year for Jake Dickert and Washington State.
So I don't know if you guys watched it or not, but I did a top 5 about a month ago on a Monday where I was giving out my awards, and Mateer had this ridiculous game, and I said he's going to win the most likely to be tampered with award. So that has actually come to pass. I would be willing to bet that of the schools, and it's not just he's got a 7-figure offer from a school. It's not just one school that's probably reached out and tampered with him. Like, there's no way that it's just one. I would say that of the schools that have tampered with him, the 3 of us here on this dais, 2 of our schools would be likely to be in that list.
Yeah, because Nebraska, even though they got
Raiola.
They have Raiola. But they're about to go into oblivion again this year. But
look, and here's the other thing I'm willing to bet, that there might be a competition for that offensive coordinator, Ben Arbuckle, between Oklahoma and Florida State and some other schools. He will be very, very sought after. And if Ben Arbuckle can go somewhere, I would not be surprised to see John Mateer follow.
Yeah, there's a chance. That could be a package deal like they did back in the day.
Yeah, I don't know what the future holds for Oklahoma at quarterback. I have no earthly idea of what Jackson Arnold's going to do, or what they decide to do with Jackson Arnold, or whatever. Obviously Hawkins as well, but it's not good this year. I don't think they have to worry about I guess Arnold. You know what? Arnold and Hawkins might both still try to get poached by somebody. I can see somebody sliding in and going like, that situation doesn't look that great. You have some talent. We could take advantage of that. Not to the level of the other guys that we've mentioned so far. Although Arnold, a prize recruit, wouldn't surprise me if some people want to see if the grass is greener with him. But, yeah, I have no idea ultimately what happens with that room. But if things were to open up, then, yeah, Oklahoma and a bunch of others would be lining up for Mateer and any other number of the line that's starting to form now. But for him in particular, I'm not surprised. He's had a really great year at Washington State. He's not the greatest thrower on earth, but he is a hell of a dual threat, and he can sling it around, don't get me wrong, but he's a heck of a runner as well. He's had an amazing season, so I'm happy for him that he's getting this attention. I'm also not so happy for Washington State, because this suddenly turns into, hey, this is awesome. Oh, wait, now the rest of the month we've got to sit here and worry about our quarterback getting poached and what the future looks like, and they've already been through hell in a handbasket the last 2 years anyways. So that part of it sucks, but I'm not surprised at all that he's one of those guys getting 7 figures tossed about. I mean, if he's getting $1 million offer, then I don't think it's crazy to think that the number 1 recruit in the entire country is getting 10 million offers from
$2.5 million on average a year. Yeah,
desperate as hell, Michigan. And LSU, who is sitting there with a coach who's about to be as desperate as you could possibly imagine. So millions in college quarterbacks is just going to go hand in hand and become a regular story, and it already sort of has.
All right, so we have a lot of you who are incredibly loyal to what we do, whether you watch us and you participate, whether it's in the chat or through various ways, the text line too. But Diane Ferrero from Alaska has been watching us from pretty much day one. She sent me this email. She said, my motivation on a couple of games down the stretch. She placed several multi-team will make the college football playoff parlays that are lining up for her to make a little bit of cash, maybe Bryce Underwood cash. Teams that she said would make it: Texas, Georgia, Alabama, Ole Miss, Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State, Miami, Notre Dame, and Colorado. She loves Colorado. She's a Colorado fan. She sends me notes about Colorado occasionally. She goes, I need Georgia to beat Tennessee. She needs Notre Dame to beat Navy. That's when I told her I'm not going to listen to her anymore because the midshipmen are my second favorite team. Needs Texas to beat A&M. Oh. And then, of course, they need Colorado. She needs Colorado to win the Big 12. She has numerous parlays. And if you look at that list, I mean, there's a couple you could hit and miss, but she did go with Colorado. That's her team. How about that?
She's got a pretty good little list
my
there.
Goodness,
That's nice. Yeah.
So there we are with that. She also is the one that brought up, and we've brought this up before, about the four conference champions. People think that means the four autonomy four, or whatever the hell they're called, the ACC, the SEC, Big Ten, and also the Big 12. And I brought that up earlier, and that's not necessarily, it's not the case, because Boise State or someone like that can still ruin that if they were to keep winning and somebody was to blank the bet, especially in the Big 12 and or possibly in the ACC. She goes, why Colorado wants BYU to go undefeated? My theory, Colorado will move up a few spots in the rankings if they continue to win out. That's the case. But so will Boise State and Army. So when Colorado wins the Big 12 championship, we want to nick off all the various highly ranked teams that can assure that the Big 12 has not only an automatic bid, but also the possibility of more than one team in the college football rankings.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like she's got a lot of fun stuff in play there, and some good possibilities on hitting on some money, and good call on Colorado. They're right here in the mix. They're in control of their own destiny, and I'm very interested in the scenario where BYU wins out and then loses to Colorado, who wins out in the Big 12 championship game. I'm very interested in how the College Football Playoff Committee would handle that. How would you handle 12-1 BYU? Who just lost? I guess it would matter. Did you get beat by 30 in Arlington, or did you get beat by 3 at the end of the game as Mata hits a field goal or something? But even still, I know if they were in 2 other leagues, they would be in, and it wouldn't even be a question mark of like, hey, you went 12-0 in the regular season. You only lost your conference championship game. Tell me that's not an automatic berth if you're in the Big Ten or the SEC. Oh, of course it is. Yeah. But in the Big 12, that's somehow, for some people, in doubt of, I don't know. That's insane to me. That is absolutely insane. And what's wrong with the system when you're going, like, I don't know, 12-1 and you lost the conference. I don't know if that deserves one of 12 spots in the playoff. Like, that is absolutely absurd.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So that's the scenario to me that is of the most potential interest to really squeeze 2 teams in, because it's really the only scenario where that happens for the Big 12. It's the only one where that's probably going to happen. I guess K-State could take Colorado's place seemingly, but I don't know that there's really a whole lot of momentum behind K-State. But, yeah, I mean, if they were to go win the Big 12 and they're the Big 12 champion, would BYU get knocked, though? Because, I don't know. That's why I think it'd be interesting, and that would be a potential way to get 2 in there, even though 2 seemingly feels like it's off the table right now. And, obviously, that would be tremendous for Colorado and also for Diane's pocketbook. So
we want you to win, Diane. No matter what all those results might mean, good for you to have all that out there, and good luck to Colorado. And who they are is they have to take care of business week to week, and Kansas coming into town. BYU's overall schedule.
They've got Utah.
Utah's coming in. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Kansas plays BYU.
Big noon kickoff is there. They have 2 really top 20 wins, BYU. SMU, who's now back inside the top 15, who they beat, although when they did beat them, they weren't. And then, of course, they had the win against Kansas State. They mauled the Wildcats 38-9. When we come back, we will do the Big 12 Bowlsby pod. There's a guy named Billy21 on Sikkim365.com that anytime I put it, the Bowlsby pod, he like shrivels, melts like hot butter in the sun, or ice in the sun in the state of Texas on an asphalt. Billy does not like us calling it the Bowlesby Pod. It's damn sure the Bowlesby Pod.
Guess what?
Don't care.
Don't care.
But I added it. Billy, we included your name just to make you feel good, too, because you've been kind of upset about it. When we come back, the Bob Bowlesby Big 12 Pod and more, this is 365 Sports.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
If you want quality and personalized service for all your air conditioning and heating needs, call Tradesman Services. They're a family-owned and operated company that has served Texans for over 30 years. Tradesman offers maintenance plans starting at just $12 per month and a free service call for all new customers. They're also experts in geothermal design, installation, and service. Visit them online at coolingwaco.com.
Another so-so pizza from So-So's Pizza? But wait, there's Marco's! Our new triple pepperoni Magnifico pizza is stacked with classic, crispy cupped, and new bold shredded pepperoni. It's triple the flavor, and only at Marco's. Just $11.99.
I'll never get used to this. I'll never get used to this. This is how I wanna live. Forever we'll be singing like, oh, I'll never get used to this. I'll never get used to this. I'll never get used to this. This is how I wanna live. This is how I wanna live. Forever we'll be singing like, oh, I'll never get used to this.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow at GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
Don't miss our best price deals during the Black Friday sales event at Allen Samuels. This month, save big on the truck you've been looking for, like the new Rams. Shop our great selection of inventory in store or online today at Allen Samuels in Waco.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
365 Sports on this 4 o'clock hour. We have a discussion in the 5 o'clock hour where we're absolutely wanting to read your responses. We do that anyway. I'll dip in there. Paul tries to on occasion. He'll run away. Craig does not get into the chat room, but he catches something every once in a while, like see if there's any shrapnel. Garrett monitors it, and so do I. The Bowlesby Pod. Let's start with who do we want to start with? Let's start with the Cougars in Houston and Willie Fritz.
Been playing better than most people expected them to play. We had Deion Chris on the show last week, and He has brought some life to their offense. Their defense was really good. And Deion Chris has put them in a position where if they go 2-1 down the stretch, they're in a bowl game. And early in the season, you would not have cast that lot for them, but holy cow, they're good. They're good. They're getting better. You can see that Willie Fritz, it didn't take long for the culture to change there, for him to affect the team, the guys that came back, the guys that he brought in. All of that was well done on Willie Fritz's part. So congrats to him for doing that. Now, look, it's not going to be easy for them to get to 2-1 for the rest of the year, but, after what we've seen, them beating Kansas State and teams like that, TCU, you can't put anything past them anymore.
I don't think there's any shot they win out, but I do think there's the possibility to win 2 more, and it's these next 2, because I don't foresee them having the ability to go out to Provo at the end of the year and beat BYU. But I do think they can beat Arizona in Tucson, and I do think they can beat Baylor in Houston, and those are the 2 up next. They got the bye week. They got to sit and simmer in that Kansas State win, as unexpected as that was, and really enjoy that for a few extra days. And if you look at the last 4-game stretch, I mean, you beat TCU in Fort Worth, you beat Utah, and you beat Kansas State. There's 0 people on this planet Earth, even with the last name Fritz, that would have predicted that before this season. Absolutely 0. So what an incredible month that was for them to pick up wins over Utah, TCU, and K-State. I mean, that's incredible for that program. Had the early signs of being a pretty tough and pesky team early in the year when they took Oklahoma to the limit. But then they had those couple of games in Big 12 play where you're like, oh, no, this is the Houston that we expect to be at the bottom rung, when they just got absolutely decimated and blown out and shut out versus Iowa State and Cincinnati. And at that point, they've turned a corner since those 2 blowouts and have gone 3-1 in the Big 12. And it's been pretty cool to watch. The quarterback situation's been kind of topsy-turvy, but Deion Chris has settled in. He's a playmaker. He's not a whistle-to-whistle, like play a complete game type of guy so far that we've seen, but he's like can make enough plays with how good their defense is to put 14 up, and that be good enough to get them in place to win. So I think they're going to need more from the offense down the stretch to keep making noise, but that defense is really, really good. They've absolutely exceeded expectations. And, yeah, a bowl game's actually a possibility with 3 games to play, which I don't know how many people would have predicted that either. So I think of the 3 games remaining, this is their best shot to win another one, is to go to Arizona and beat the Wildcats. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing this one, and I think that the sky's the limit for Willie Fritz and company moving forward.
They were off to the start that most everybody thought. Remember, they took Oklahoma to the wire, and now you look at that, and it's still a hell of an effort. But OU just can't do anything on offense. But OU happened to win that game. They were 1-4, and then they won the game in Fort Worth against TCU, and everyone was like, what? And then, of course, got blown out by KU. But since that time, nice wins, tough wins against Utah, and then the big one against Kansas State. Now, let's go from Houston. Let's go to Cincinnati and Coach Satterfield and what he's doing with the Bearcats.
Obviously started out better than they've been going. Just took that loss to West Virginia, which I think shocked a lot of Cincinnati fans. I think they were hoping to get earlier season West Virginia, not one that's been playing better. But still, I mean, I think, everything's a net positive from them, right? Like that they've had this year. They're on the way up. You can see it with them. And, that loss to West Virginia, though, I think did probably,
Hey, they've got Iowa State, Kansas State coming up next.
Yeah,
and then TCU. But
especially because it is Iowa State, who's lost 2 games in a row, right. And you're going to their
both
place,
on the road,
and they're going to be really, really hungry. Yeah, and so that's going to be tough.
I think that losing to West Virginia might have blown their bowl chances because there's not a gimme left on this schedule. I don't anticipate them going and winning in Ames this weekend. I wouldn't expect them to go to Manhattan and win, and TCU at the end of the year. I mean, TCU's definitely good enough to beat them, so they're cutting it close. And, they can quiet all that and just go win this weekend and leave no doubts and not break a sweat. But you are getting into that territory where you start to go like, all right, we've got 3 games to win 1. S, we've got 2 games to win 1.
Yep.
F, we got to win this one. And that's what you want to try to avoid, but that's the situation that they might find themselves because of that West Virginia loss, which don't turn the ball over 3 times. Brendan Sorsby, who's been great, and he's the reason why they've even won 5 games, but the turnovers really cost them in a very winnable game. I don't think that West Virginia played particularly well, but they played well enough to, outlast Cincinnati, and I just think that was a big old missed opportunity at home against a beatable team. So we'll see if they come to regret that showing. And if it comes back to bite them, but I would imagine that Brendan Sorsby is probably getting some offers from bigger schools as well. I wouldn't be surprised by that at all. I don't know about millions of dollars and all of those things, but I sure as hell feel like if John Mateer, and I'm not saying this disrespectfully, I think John Mateer's a really good player, but I would think if guys like him are commanding $1 million, and I could definitely see somebody going, Brendan Sorsby could sling it around. I think he could help us win at Vanderbilt or wherever. I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest. So, yeah, it's a big week to week now for them. They got to get win number 6. That's a big thing. They've definitely improved, but you don't want to end the season on a 5-game losing streak, which is what not making a bowl game would look like, because that would absolutely alter the entire picture of how you look back on what was otherwise a really good start to the year.
I missed it. I had Cincinnati winning that game with West Virginia, and I missed it. But now if you look at it with what's happening with them, that was they're like a lot of teams. There's a chunk of 6 to 8 teams that can pretty much beat anybody, and again, then you just aren't so sure about who they are at times. Now UCF, my goodness, whoo, man, they've lost 6 of their last 7 after a 3-0 start. They had the win against TCU on the road, which was critical to open up conference play, but they are in deep. They have the off week, and then they go to Morgantown. They close out against Utah at home. Man, what a disappointing stretch for UCF.
Our Lady of Blessed Off Weeks. Thank you if you're a UCF fan. I'm sorry. UCF. I'm sorry. I almost made a mistake there. Please do not.
What did you say?
I almost said S.
Oh, yeah. No,
Twitter. If you're a UCF fan.
We're going to do next, Paul, call them the Golden Knights.
Yeah. No, if you're a UCF fan, it's been a slog of a season. I was way off on KJ Jefferson. I thought he would be fantastic in this offense. Then they went from him to Ja'Cory Brown. Now they're on the 3rd quarterback of the year, who's actually probably the best one of the bunch. And, yeah, they really need this week off and hopefully can, get their heads right down the stretch. But they've got to go 2-0 against West Virginia on the road. And then Utah, that one's winnable on a Friday night at home. But, I mean, would it put it past you for them to finish this year 4-8? It wouldn't surprise me the way things have gone. They just have no momentum at all at any point.
Well, Dylan Risk is not their 3rd; he's their 4th quarterback at this point. It had a little bit of a situation where, now his name's escaping me. Young man who played very, very briefly.
Ja'Cory Brown?
No, E.J. Colson.
Oh, okay.
So that was the guy that you're probably not thinking of. But Dylan Risk, still has provided a little bit of a spark. That was a nice back-and-forth game with Arizona State tonight. They win and got their tails kicked by any means. They just lost a really competitive, tight back-and-forth game late in the game on the road. And it doesn't make it feel any better, but I do think that they are playing better. And it's not showing, unfortunately, in the standings. But these last couple of weeks, I think there have been signs of this Dylan Risk kid's got a little something to him. Now, he did not have nearly the game he had the week prior, so maybe that helps explain why he wasn't the starting quarterback from the very outset when he has this big game. Everybody's like, where's this been? Why did you go get KJ Jefferson? He's not just making that emphatic statement week after week. He didn't have the best game, but he can sling it around, and I just hope that what doesn't get lost in this season for UCF is how incredible R.J. Harvey's been. He's had an awesome year, truly awesome year, one of the best running back production seasons in the entire country. And I think we say it and we mention, R.J. Harvey in the rushing attack, but we don't really talk about what he's posting every week. And that's unfortunate because he's been sensational and he's a big part why they're in most of the games that they're actually in. So had another great game. He's amazing, but yeah, they just they're floundering, and I just don't know how you continue to sell the Gus Malzahn vision with the way it's kind of trending, and you see why there's these outcries for change because it's just sort of plodding along now, and it's dipping, but it's not really ever coming back up to the surface all that often, even though you got that win over Arizona. Without that, you're riding a, 8-game losing streak right now? You've lost 7 of your last 8, so it's bad, man. And at least you got R.J. Harvey to look forward to every week, but they need to figure some things out this offseason. And I think it's possible to win these next 2 and go bowling and kind of salvage this, but going to Morgantown is definitely not a guarantee. I do think that Utah is a game you feel pretty good about at home at the end of the year, and if you beat West Virginia in a couple weeks, then I think you feel great about winning number 6 in front of the UCF fans. But we'll see. They are probably loving this bye week and just getting a little mental break as much as a physical break of anything with the way the losses have piled up.
Did you say Golden Knights, Paul? I just
no,
not
he
Paul.
did.
Okay,
I didn't finish it. I caught myself.
I bring that up not to, I guess, joking a little bit, but my God, they were everywhere. The fans, right? UCF football, the Twitter, all of that. I mean, everywhere, and they were proud. They had a nice little thing going, and now part of the Big 12, but they has been so quiet.
I think the fan base has turned on Gus, too.
Yeah, man, they're tired of it.
Yeah.
I mean, well, they got kind of spoiled there where they had a really great run, and I would say that about anybody who's got a string of years, and especially when you change head coaches and you're still having success, like you get kind of spoiled by that. Every program does, and I think there's a certain bar that you feel like is set, and you get that big call to the Big 12, and everything's rolling. You got Gus Malzahn, who's done this and that during his career, and these are not the results that you expected. And there's not really a tremendous sign of like, well, all these guys were hurt, and that's why. I mean, you can say like, well, hey, we've got Dylan Risk coming back next year or whatever, but I just don't know how pumped up people are for running it back with Gus again without some more major changes. And the thing is, they had major changes this offseason, but that then had to do in-season, changes. And so it's just kind of messy. It's not real cohesive, and it's just kind of all over the place. The one constant is just losing every week now at this point, and that's not something that they got used to down in Orlando when they were winning 9-10 games every year there for a little while. So, yeah, these last couple of years have been rough.
So we've hit Cincinnati, we've hit Houston, we've hit UCF, and then the leader of the pack, BYU, unbeaten, number 6 when it comes to the college football playoff standings. Huge win against Utah, dramatic final drive, all the drama with it. And here we are with the Cougars and Kalani Sitake still right there at 9-0.
We had, because I don't know if you guys know that we do this, but every other Thursday in the triple option, we have a shelter dog come in here to try to help them get adopted. Today we had a dog named Yogi come in, and this is the first time we do this. We took the BYU and Kansas helmets back here from Green Gridiron, and we put dog treats in them, and Yogi picked the BYU-Kansas game. He picked the 7-month-old pit bull. He got hit by a car. He's doing great. He was very sweet, but he picked BYU. And I said if he picked Kansas, I would flip my pick. But he picked BYU. I'm going with Yogi. But this is, BYU is not a juggernaut. They're just really consistent and good. And Kansas is on their upswing right now. So they're on full upset alert this week at BYU. Would not be surprised to see Kansas be able to pull this off because it feels like somebody's going to get them eventually, and the undefeated teams are running out, and they are still one of them. But should they go on and win and continue to be undefeated, not shocking at all because they just have something special about them.
Yeah, I mean, they're a very solid team. I don't think they're going to blow you away with just any singular part, but I think you watch long enough and you are definitely impressed by Jake Retzloff. Even when he's not having great games, he manages to make some plays to help you win the game. And I think you saw that the other night. Their defense is obviously very solid, even though Utah is not the best example, but we've seen them be consistent throughout the year. And SMU's throwing up a lot of points on people, and I know it was earlier in the year, but they held SMU to 5 field goals. So that defense has been consistent from basically the start of the season here towards the end, and the running game has gotten a little bit better with LJ Martin healthy and in the fold. Their receivers are obviously really talented and really good. There's a lot to like. I don't know if there's anything that you just love necessarily when it comes to like the big picture and why they could end up in the national championship game or anything, but I don't think that's really going to be the case for maybe any Big 12 teams most years, right? I think we've been kind of on record as saying, like, hey, you're going to have a much better chance to get a Big 12 team into the playoff with the new format, but the odds of actually winning it have gone down.
Yeah.
Because you're not built to win 4 games against teams like the teams you're going to be seeing in the top 12 of the polls. But I think BYU set up to maybe win a couple games. They just got to take it week by week, and they'll find themselves exactly where they need to be with a bye in the first round. And that's how I think a Big 12 team can make a deep push is, you get a bye, maybe an upset, or you get a good draw, and then bam, you find yourself in that Final Four, and then who the hell knows at that point in time. But they're in line to get that bye right now, which I think is extremely important. They're in line for, obviously, the Big 12 title in Arlington, which is a must-have, and they're in line for a 10-0 start, and they get to play at home where they are very, very tough to beat. So a lot of things are lining up really well for them. I'm still waiting for the shoe to drop. And that last week, I felt like, okay, here's the game that's going to finally get away from them, but they managed to win again. So hats off to them. I don't know how sustainable that is, but it's ridden them through the first 9 weeks of the season. And I think they're going to be favored in every one of the games moving forward, but they've got a couple challenges. Like Kansas is red hot. Going to Tempe is not going to be easy with the way Arizona State's playing. So, it's going to be an interesting final 3 games, but I like their chances.
They are on the edge. They're winning close games, but they are playing with fire. But God bless them, they continue to win. When we come back, Matt McChesney, former Colorado and NFL lineman on Deion, Colorado, and the Buffaloes. And then Rod Babers on UT. This is 365 Sports. Baylor alumni fan engagement, thanks to Paul Thorpe and also Doug Furch. They both are very much engaged in making sure if you're a Baylor alum that you have something you want to promote involved in athletics, whether it's a watch party somewhere that's away from wherever Baylor is playing and you want it to be promoted, they will help you with that. Or a tailgating. They can help you with that. For example, Baylor, when they're on the road in Morgantown, if you are a Baylor alum and you're having something that you're doing in Morgantown, you can let them know. They'll let everybody else know. If you need to promote something with alumni when it comes to athletic events and more, and not just football season, but other sports too, Baylor Alumni Fan Engagement. Look it up on Facebook or go to baylor.edu.
It's time to score big savings at the Kickoff to Savings event on GMC trucks at Richard Carr GMC. Take the winning drive with the Texas Truck MVP. GMC Sierra is the best truck on the road. Save $9,000 on 2024 GMC Sierra SLT models in stock with 2010 or newer approved trade-in. Plus, qualified buyers get 1.9% financing and no payments for 90 days. See dealer for details. Save big and score your deal at the Kickoff to Savings event at Richard Carr GMC.
Richard Carr, they have the truck for you.
Edward Jones Financial Advisors Josh Satterfield and John Maddox understand these are difficult and changing times we live in, but they know how important your financial investments are to you. So is your financial advisor staying in touch with you and helping you navigate today's financial climate? When you invest with Edward Jones Financial Advisors Josh Satterfield, John Maddox, and Sean Carter, they will provide their time and experience to help you reach your goals. And like coaching athletes, investing money is about time, patience, and encouragement. Josh Satterfield and Sean Carter on Wycon Road off Bagby, and John Maddox on Sapphire Boulevard in Hewitt. Proud sponsors of Midway Panthers football. Edward Jones, making sense of investing. Membership SIPC.
El Conquistador Restaurants are a very proud sponsor of the Midway Panthers, have been owned and operated by the Gonzalez family since 1969. El Conquistador is recognized annually as a local favorite with their fast and friendly service. Dine in or order takeout and enjoy your favorite Tex-Mex items as well as several traditional menu items. Catering is also available with 3 locations to serve you: Waco, Belmead, and Hillsboro. The Gonzalez family thanks you in Waco and the surrounding area for your continued support of 55 years in business. Go Panthers!
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow @GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student-athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. This segment is brought to you by Michelob Ultra. It's only worth it if you enjoy it. Containing only 95 calories and 2.6 carbs.
Our great friend, Matt McChesney, 6-0 Academy, with us, and former Colorado Buffalo, and also in the NFL. Man, you came on with us when all of this started happening about Colorado and the Big 12, that it became official, and you loved it. Your thoughts about where we are now and what Deion has done to now not only win, but they're winning, and they're winning in a way that a lot of people thought they couldn't.
Well, thanks for having me back on. You guys rock. Look, I'm ecstatic. With the exception of, looking back at Nebraska and Kansas State and wondering how we lost those games, being 7-2 and ranked 17th with everything in front of us, and the way they're winning, and the Heisman talk for Travis Hunter and Shador, and the offensive line play and how much better they've gotten, the defense and how ruthlessly mean they are, and they just keep getting better and better. It seems since that Baylor game, not to rub it in, but since that Hail Mary and that, the rainy day miracle up there in Boulder, they've just taken off. So I'm pumped, man. I don't know if I could be more excited as an alum and as a fan. And I anticipated them being a lot better than they were last year. Got a lot of grief for it, but I could see the writing on the wall. I didn't anticipate them being this good. But I'll tell you, Deion's building a monster up in Boulder right now.
Yeah, they certainly look on the way up. Their offensive line has played better. They still can't run the ball, but is that the only thing you feel they can't do right now? Is run the ball when they have to?
I'm not going to say they can't. I'm going to say they choose to use the running game to set up their passing game rather than the other way around. And, there's circumstances where when they play Cincinnati, they ran the ball close to 40 times. But when they went to Texas Tech, they kind of just dink and dunk their run game and then take advantage of the 124th ranked pass defense. So I think that Pat Schumer and Shador, and the thing is, Well-Off Media and Deion Sanders Jr., they do such a great job of letting you see things that other people don't get to see. And the interaction on the sideline between Pat and Shador and Travis Hunter and Wester and all the guys they have on the outside, I mean, it is second to none. They are super honest with each other to the point of, like, rubbing people the wrong way because they're cursing and, like, it's football talk. So how much control Shador has, and then the cohesive nature between him and Pat Schumer, and then all of the skill athletes, with Travis Hunter spearheading that, being the unicorn he is, I think they just kind of play into the fact that they've got the best skill players in the country, the number one quarterback in the country, and you have to take advantage of that when you have a huge advantage. I think if they need to run the football, they can. They've gotten a lot more creative with a lot of the tackle pulls and, trapping 3 techniques and getting more vertical in how they run. But it's not their strong suit. But again, I don't know if it necessarily needs to be the number one thing that they do. When you have that much of an advantage on damn near everyone you play, it may rear its head in the playoff or something like that when you play somebody that's equal athletically. But right now, in the Big 12, there's just not anyone that's equal athletically in the defensive secondary against Colorado's offensive skill players, and it is a drastic fall off too. Like the receivers and the skill position players for Colorado are as elite as they get in college football. So I just think you got to pick your poison. If they want to run the ball, I guess they can, but it's not their strong suit, and it shouldn't be.
Matt, the defense has been much better than I think anybody anticipated, and they are nasty, and they will get after you, and there's just an attitude about them. They're physical, but what has impressed you most about what Robert Livingston has done in his short time in Boulder?
Well, not only Livingston, but, Coach Sapp and Coach Lewis. Yeah. I played with Coach Lewis in the NFL, and, I grew up idolizing Warren Sapp, playing three technique my whole life. So just to see the way that they've got that front cooking, and they are just rotating in defensive linemen, and they're all balling. I mean, the McNeil kid last week, number 88, in the first half of that game, he missed three blatant, pirate three technique TFLs. He's in the backfield and misses the play. And instead of getting mad at him and benching him, they reassured him, and he ended up with 9 tackles and 4 TFLs and 2 sacks and a forced fumble. So they're deep. They've got a lot of guys that they can rotate in. Arden Walker, who's a Cherry Creek product out here in Denver, went to Missouri originally. His dad, Art Walker, is one of the Houston connection back in the day, old Big 8 Buffs. And he is an absolute terror off the edge with 2 sacks last week. I mean, they can just rotate in guys left and right, and they're fresh, and they're playing hard. I always look at a good defense, and when they chase the ball on a screen, or when they chase the ball on a crossing route, do they keep the distribution in how they're aligned when they chase? And bad defenses chase behind each other, and they chase around each other, and they don't keep the framework of the defense, steady as they chase the ball. When CU moves right or left, forward or back, everybody keeps the same distance in between each other, keeping the levels of the defense consistent and allowing guys to make tons of plays. That's when you get linebackers dropping back off the line of scrimmage to pick off passes like they did last week. And I just think the defense is really the hidden gem of this. I know that Shador and Travis and the offense get all of the headlines, but defense wins championships. And I'm telling you, if they can figure out how to get through the next 3, and all 3 of these teams were picked at the top of the Big 12, and now they're at the bottom of it, but that doesn't mean they're bad. So the worst thing you can do is overlook them. I don't think BYU necessarily wants to see Colorado walk into Texas Stadium in Dallas ready to try and stop that. So I'm bullishly confident at the moment, to say the least.
The interception was Hill Green, right, that had the pick where he looked like a bear standing next to some sort of the rapids and pulling out salmon or trout. That was such an athletic play, Matt. You mentioned McNeil. He was fantastic, but that was an amazing play by him, too.
Yeah, and look, the law firm is what I call 41 and 20. All right, Hill Green and Bentley. And, that's what I call those two, is the law firm. They just they are just mean. And 41 is an old school linebacker. He's big. He's physical. He can get downhill in a hurry, and he's great at reading his run keys. And he's athletic enough to cover, and that's a hard find in college football. So, I think that if you just look at the front 7, you're going to be like, wow, these guys are really good. And then you look at the back end, and they've just got draft picks everywhere. I mean, Travis Hunter is what he is. If he's not the top pick in the draft, it's because that team that's picking has a quarterback. But McKinley's a draft pick. The Hodge kid is a draft pick. Stoudemire's a draft pick. Shiloh's probably going to get drafted if he's had his ups and downs, but his last name is Sanders. The kid. God, what's his name? I can't remember his damn name. but the number 3, Hood, who just stepped in and balled at Arizona, and he's a really good looking player with 3 years left in front of him. So they when Deion took over, he said he's building from the outside in because that's what he knows, and he got a lot of grief for that. That's not the way you're supposed to do it. But I think that first year he was trying to figure out, number one, what he had, but number two, what kind of big guys and what kind of, trench players he really wanted to find. And he found the coaches to go find the players, Lode Holt and Lewis and Coach Sapp and Coach Livingston, Lode Holt being the offensive line coach, the trench is the trench. They've really fortified this team, and built around Shedeur and Travis. And I've been saying this for a long time, but when Shedeur Sanders doesn't have to do everything, that man's going to be able to do anything. And right now, CU is humming.
Matt, they had what appeared to be, I don't know if it's a culture problem, like a chemistry problem in the Nebraska game. Because when you mentioned it earlier, and you've been through this, sometimes a game will humble you and it doesn't work out that way. It appears that post that Nebraska game, they as much as they have a lot of flash and a lot of Deion's personality, that they've turned that down just enough that they let the results speak before they maybe celebrate.
Yeah, and I think it forced a lot of grit. Like, nothing more humbling than getting your ass kicked by your rival, and especially after dismantling them the year before that they did it, like we did in Folsom. So I was at that game. My son Nick was a recruit by Nebraska that day, and I was actually on the sideline. It was weird, but it was being in that atmosphere. I hadn't been back there in about 10 years, and hadn't been on the sideline since 04 when we beat them for the North title, and it was insane. I mean, that place, it was Nebraska's Super Bowl, regardless of what any Husker fan says. And you've seen what happened to them since. Like, it's not the same team in both regards. So Nebraska, that was their day. CU, it was another day. And it was humbling for Colorado that day because everyone decided to throw in the towel and be like, oh, it's all a sham and they're soft and they can't run the ball and they can't do this, and they can't do that. And Shedeur's not big time ready. And instead of harboring it and getting mad at each other, they came together and really looked at themselves and said, what do we need to do to make this successful, even if it's subtle? And they started making changes on the offensive line and scheme wise. And then they went out and started stacking wins. Kansas State hits. They go for negative 29 yards rushing. That's another humbling moment on national TV in a game you should have won. So the 2 losses this year for CU, remember, they lost 6 games last year by 1 score. So all those games, that taught the guys that returned to this team what it takes to win close. Then you go out and lose 2 games you're not supposed to lose, and that just pissed this group off. And you can tell that they are the offense knows if they get a couple of scores up, the defense gets to feast, and the defense knows that, man, when the offense does what it does, which is every week now, we are going to be able to pass rush and play mean defense. So right now they're the aggressor on both sides of the ball, and that was forced. And usually that's the way it works. You take an L to somebody you're not supposed to lose to, or a rival, or however it comes about. And, good football teams respond to that, and bad football teams let that one, moment define their season. So, it's would I like to have the win back in Lincoln to switch places? No, I think they needed that this year in order to become the team they are. You got to go through hell to get to heaven. So, it's sometimes you got to get hit in the mouth to wake up, and all they did was wake up a sleeping giant.
I can't believe you're going to let Nicholas commit to Nebraska. He's just a freshman, right? I mean, this is unbelievable.
He's only a freshman. He's been to Utah, Nebraska now. He's going to CU again this week. So he's playing on an undefeated team out here in Denver at Mount Vista. And I'm in Carline trying to get my little one so we can go to practice. And, yeah, man, looking good. 6'3.5", about 260, 14,
Jeez.
Size 15 shoe, kind of mean. So I'm pretty proud of him. We got a lot of work to do, though. So he can't be patting himself on the back too fast.
I like how you say kind of mean. Like
kind of mean.
Like you want to keep it like where there's a meter on it, right? You're like
Well,
turn it down, kind of mean, like yeah.
I need him nice in civil land, but when we get on the field and he puts a helmet on, I need him to be able to crank it. So, he's a hell of a good looking offensive and defensive lineman. So we'll see where this all goes.
Does he think his dad was a hell of a good looking offense and defensive lineman?
I mean, he's always telling me that he's better than me. So I'm like, you got to prove it. So
yeah.
So he wears 60 and he's gone and chased it the right way, and he's got a lot of really good examples other than me too. Like Brett Coolidge's in the program, the #1 offensive lineman in his class at IMG, and he's around all these guys getting offered day in and day out. We got 25 offers out this year at 60 Football Academy again. So he's been around it his whole life, and plus having me as a dad, it just kind of naturally gravitated. So I'm pretty excited for the young man.
Last thing, we appreciate you doing that while you're also trying to do some dad duty.
Yeah, man.
Do you feel like that Deion has gotten either more involved or has just how would you describe him as a coach this year than even maybe 2 months ago?
I would say that Coach Prime 100% walked in and put his foot down and said, this is what has to happen. Like we have to be able to play defense. We have to be able to rush the passer. We have to be able to at least have a respectable running game that people have to have every now and then put an 8th guy in the box, making it almost impossible to cover our people outside. I think that Coach Prime, again, a learning experience last year. I think he put a little bit too much faith in both the coordinators and kind of played CEO. And this year, to a point, was doing that at the beginning. And then, again, Nebraska happened and it changed. And you could feel the change in the building. You could feel the change with the players. You could feel the change on the practice field. Another, well-off media again. And Bucky, Deion Sanders Jr. doing everything he does, giving you access to all that. You can see the mannerism change. You can hear the tone change. And it worked because it sparked the leadership in his players. You guys know this. Any good team is usually ran by players, and the coaches just kind of sit there and try and keep everybody in line. So now the players are the main voice of change and purpose and being, the point of the spear. And, Coach Prime has got to step back and allow his guys to take over. And he set the tone for that by showing them that he would take over the coaching staff and make sure they're doing exactly what he wants and how he wants it done. And that, just because you're in a leadership position doesn't necessarily mean you know everything about leadership. So a good leader is going to constantly be pushing himself to change and get better as well. And I think he looked at himself in the mirror and said, I've got to be more assertive and forceful and walk in and tell them what I want rather than asking them to do what I want. And when Coach Prime talks, people listen, and he's got that staff tuned up correctly from a recruiting standpoint, developmental standpoint, and everything they're doing. And he's got his players just chomping at the bit for the next conquest. It's not they don't care about what they've done. It's all about the next thing. And that's scary when you're as talented as they are. So I tip my cap to Coach Prime, man. He's really evolved as a coach, and you can see it in every part of it, from recruiting to development to the game planning and everything else that's going on.
Last thing, again, on him, he is for some, a polarizing figure, but he's going to get attention. And you have these yap shows, and we're a talk show, but hopefully not a yap show, where just because of how successful now he's been, then you start to have speculation. He seems to handle that pretty quickly and head on. Your thoughts about any speculation as a distraction?
Look, he's always going to have speculation as a distraction. Always. He's Coach Prime. The Cowboys not being good this year. I said this. I mean, my guy that does all the social media for us, Bailey, on my show on 0 to 60 on Believe. Go check it out on YouTube. We had a vertical done, for social media and whatnot on, I think it was April 19th, talking about Coach Prime going to the Cowboys and Shador being the first pick, and people scoffed at it. And 2 days ago, that's like the national headline. So the speculation's always going to be there. Coach Prime puts it spearhead and just immediately scoffs it. And I believe it because I've got guys in my program at 6-0 Football Academy that are committed to him. Zane D'Souza, our big tight end from Loveland High School, is committed to Coach. And the first thing he asked Coach Prime is, are you going to be here next year? And Coach Prime looked at him and said, Zane, you're more liable to go to the transfer portal than I am to leave. That this is where I want to be. I'm recruiting like this is where I want to be. They're about to flip Juju Lewis and Carday Smith from SC. They've got all these kids from IMG coming in this week. They've offered 3 of my other guys that I work with that are not yet committed, and they're trying to get them to commit. And their main selling point is Coach Prime's not going anywhere. We're just going to get better. We're about to reload in the transfer portal and hand the keys to Juju Lewis and take off. So I personally think that there's no way he leaves Boulder. Now, I'm not going to say no way. There's a 90% chance he doesn't leave. But, Florida State's struggling and the Cowboys are struggling, and I guess I'll leave it on speculate land by saying you never know.
Yep. Yeah. That's the best way to do it. You're right or wrong. You know, yeah.
Matt, here's what I'll tell you. Mike Norvell's not going anywhere this year. If there's a repeat of this year next year, I'm on Florida State's my alma mater. I have no doubt in my mind that they will at least try to go crawling back to Deion, who they told no before they hired Norvell. So
yeah, and that's the thing is, will Coach Prime want to go back, and is he happy with what he built? And look, I personally think this is not just because I'm an alum. I think Colorado has the ability to walk into the new Big 12 with, Texas and Oklahoma and Nebraska and Texas A&M all gone. It's not the same conference as was. And if they can figure out how to do this consistently every year, I think they can be the upper echelon program and top program in that conference every year. So I guess, is the road easier in the ACC or the Big 12? I don't know. We'll have to figure that out as we go. But if I'm a Florida State fan, why wouldn't you want Coach Prime as your coach down in Tallahassee? Oh, my God.
Matt, you are always a fantastic segment. Appreciate the passion, the energy, and your opinions, too. We appreciate your time. Good luck with everybody, and have a great rest of the year.
Yeah, man, you guys keep kicking ass, and I appreciate you having me on. Go Buffs.
6-0 Academy is Matt McChesney, former Colorado lineman, NFL, too, and we appreciate his time. Garrett, do we have Rod Babers?
I thought we did.
We did. Rod just dropped.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I hope it's not, because we're running not much late. Let's break here, Garrett. Let's try to see if we can reestablish, want to get Rod Babers on the show, former Texas defensive back who also is on the Horn Radio in Austin. This is 365 Sports. Don's Humidor and Coffee Beans. I went by there today and had a chance to visit with Joshua and also Cheyenne. When I was there, they were serving a couple of customers who wanted fresh ground coffee beans. They have that. And the favorite is Cowboy. That's the favorite. The favorite flavor is Cowboy, but there was a couple of them that she also mentioned Cheyenne did. They have Vita Dreams, a CBD product it's a gummy, that if you want to relax a little bit, it doesn't make you feel like you've taken anything, but you just kind of, when you lay down to go to sleep, the distractions and all, it's gone. And then on top of that, 48-foot walk-in humidor when it comes to the best cigars in America and also the world, from Macanudo to H. Upman, Romeo and Julieta, Arturo Fuente, my favorite brand, Rocky Patel, and so much more on top of that. Cohiba. Yes, Cohiba. And, yes, you want something, they have it inside of the 48-foot walk-in humidor. Fresh ground coffee beans, Vita Dreams, CBD product, also a gummy called For Bad Days for those with chronic pain that you just need it to function. And the great cigars, Don Humidor and Coffee Beans between Richland Drive and Valley Mills in Waco.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma. And they have to come here. They're used to lights. They're used to the water in their mouth. They're used to experience. They already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8-year-old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Pioneer Steel and Pipe opened their doors in 1943, and they have never wavered with their focus on great product and customer service, relationships with a handshake, making sure you, the customer, is satisfied. Their new facility is now twice the size, allowing new inventory, higher quantities, and in a much more organized fashion. In addition to the long lengths in tubing, angles, channels, rods, and flat, Pioneer Steel and Pipe now offers several shorter, more convenient lengths of material already cut. Their 2,500 square foot showroom has over 1,000 new products in stock, new welding supplies, hardware, quickcrete, and do-it-yourself components for any project, whether you are a professional contractor or weekend warrior. The new facility is designed to make your loading experience faster and more efficient with easy drive lanes around the building and much more room to get your trailer loaded. Our location may have changed, but our values haven't, and our relationship with customers goes much farther than just business. Pioneer Steel and Pipe on Loop 340 and Highway 6 and just east of I-35 in Waco.
Some say a dog is a man's best friend. But I tell you what, boys, you better think again. 'Cause there ain't nothing better than some cows, pigs, and turkeys too. I love to cover them in sauce down at Rudy's Barbecue.
Bring all your friends to Rudy's for some tasty oak smoke barbecue.
Next in line.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All Big 12, All-American, defensive back, cornerback Rod Babers, University of Texas, now a part of the Horn, has been, and also a part of the Texas football as well as an analyst. He joins us. Hey, man, how you doing?
Up, doing great. Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
We appreciate you being a part of it. Craig Smoak and Paul Catalina, David Smoak with Rod Babers on 365 Sports. So UT is rolling. They had that Georgia, that first half of Georgia was tough. We've had you on 2 or 3 different times. How much did that off week allow them to take a deep breath and kind of put things in perspective and move forward?
It was necessary. The offense had started to regress in those 3 games, Oklahoma, then Georgia, and then Vanderbilt. Now, it probably had something to do with those being defensive-oriented teams with defensive-minded head coaches as well. But there was certainly some regression there offensively. Also could have been related to Quinn's injury, right? He was also coming back from the injury. I believe, it's my theory personally, that there were some lingering effects from that injury. And after the extra bye week, it seemed like he was healthier, especially in that Florida game, the way that he went off in that Florida game, throwing for a career high in single game touchdowns with 5 of them, and pretty much had done all of his work by halftime. I think he was out of the game after the first series in the third quarter. They put Arch Manning in. So definitely the best we've seen Quinn look since prior to the injury. So it was necessary. And I think Sark actually got back to, or at least maybe he decided to modify some things offensively that helped them come out and, as Sark mentioned, get their mojo back. And he said they got their mojo back offensively versus Florida.
This is Rod, an old rivalry game here, and Sark's even made his joke was, I don't know what Darryl Royal did to these people, but man, they really do hate us and all of that. Arkansas can be very explosive offensively.
Yep.
Defensively, they would like to get that a little better, although they have a really interesting young defensive coordinator on that squad. How much emotion in this game is the trap for Texas because the fans in Arkansas want this so badly?
Yeah, and they're coming off, guys, their most embarrassing loss of the season, right? Ole Miss is straight up. I mean, that was an Old Testament, old biblical style butt whipping Ole Miss put on them. So they're coming off of that. So then they had a bye week to stew in that as well. And then coming off the bye week, they'll be as fresh as they've been pretty much since the beginning of the season. There are a couple of guys that was missing, Jaquindon Jackson being one of them. He looks like he's probable on that injury report. I think Braylon Russell, the 250-pound freshman running back they got, just a downhill bowling ball. I believe he was questionable. I think he's going to end up playing too. So I'm with you. The running game for Arkansas to me is something to be concerned about. I looked that up, man. They are one of the most explosive offenses. You said it. How about this, guys? They're top 5 in the country in 10-plus yard plays generated and 20-plus yard plays generated. There's no doubt about it. This is the most explosive offense that this Texas defense has had to face. Now, this is statistically the best defense in the country. Actually, you go look at it, they're the best defense in the country at limiting explosive plays. They've allowed the fewest 10-plus yard plays and 20-plus yard plays on the season, but they haven't done it against a quarterback this dynamic. Sark even admitted today that Taylor Green is the most dangerous quarterback they've played. They haven't had a dual threat quarterback that can present the problems that Taylor Green can. Diego Pavia was a different type of dual threat quarterback. And this young man can throw the football. I mean, he was, if you go look at it, Pro Football Focus has him at top 15 in passing grade of 10-plus yards. He's top 15 in the country. So Taylor Green can throw it, but also a dynamic runner, and they like to hit the edges with him. So combined with the power running game, which Braylon Russell and Jaquindon Jackson present, and then you got to have a +1 in the run game, so you got to have a spy on him, and you got to make sure you allocate resources to stop him. Then there's Andrew Armstrong on the outside, one of the best wide receivers in the country, over 800 yards receiving. He'll probably end up getting to 1,000 potentially by the time the season's done, and this is a guy that's going to play on Sundays. He's the most talented receiver they face. So Texas defense is legit. It's the best defense potentially in the country. They have not faced an offense that presents the problems that Arkansas will.
Rod, what do you think of some of the national narrative kind of picking apart Texas' schedule at this point? I mean, to me, it's like just keep winning and you're fine, and that's all that really matters. But do you feel like they would have been more tested at this point, or is anything in regards to that surprise you? Is that just Twitter talking?
No, it's not. I mean, I think two things can be true. I think Texas is one of the top 5 best teams in the country, but it is true that the teams that they have played, they don't really have a quality win on the schedule. And it's crazy. Usually you face a Michigan, you got Oklahoma, Michigan on the schedule, you got Georgia on the schedule, you got some traditional powerhouses on the schedule you faced. And yet, because those programs are down or have been down, Florida as well, because they're down, Texas isn't getting any national respect for those wins. And I get it. But I'm with you. The late, great Al Davis said it. Just win, baby. Texas keeps winning. We don't even have to entertain the discussion about the strength of schedule. We ain't got to talk about, quality wins and quality losses. We ain't got to entertain none of that nonsense right now if you're a Longhorn fan. Just win, baby. But if they lose, and I think they can beat Arkansas and Kentucky, the only game I can see them potentially losing left on the schedule is A&M, and that would be a hell of a game to lose. If they lose, then yes, you would have to entertain the possibility of teams looking at or at least a committee looking at your quality wins and all of that stuff, and whether you have a playoff resume. Right now, I think Texas controls their own fate, and I think right now with Texas, they're fine with that circumstance.
For you, if I read this correctly, you would have only faced off against Arkansas once, right? Was it like your redshirt freshman year? I know it's a bad memory looking at that score, but because of the fact that they haven't played a ton, like what is your kind of hatred level, if you will, or your rivalry spirit when it comes to Arkansas? Because obviously that's about to take off in a major way starting with this weekend.
Yeah, that's a good question. We were just talking about that. I wasn't raised on the Arkansas rivalry, right? When Matt Brown was recruiting me, he would say, "Hey, we got to beat Oklahoma, and we got to beat Texas A&M. We got to beat them both." Right? That was part of his sales pitch, part of his recruiting pitch. And even when you didn't play A&M after they left and went to the SEC, that's an in-state rivalry. Hell, half the time, most of the guys that are committed to Texas, they took a recruiting trip to A&M. Right, A&M and Texas were my two final schools. So even if we didn't play, there was still a connection, right? There's still that connection that makes it personal. And for Arkansas, the young generation didn't have that. I didn't have it. So that's my theory as to why most of the time, since they have not been in conference together, that Arkansas has a little bit of the emotional edge. Because for them, it is still fresh. And for them, their hatred is real. It is palpable. They wake up with it still every day, even though they weren't in the same conference with Texas. And I think for Texas, they had, in their mind, moved on. And when 99, when we played them in the Cotton Bowl, I mean, that's what happened to us. They rode that emotion. They were on an emotional high, I think, early on. Happened to Charlie Strong, right? Remember the borderline erotic game where Brett Miller comes out and says, oh, beating Texas is borderline erotic. And for Arkansas fans, it is. And Sark understood it too in 2021. He went down there into a hornet's nest and got that Old Testament style butt whipping. And I think he understood. I'm grateful for that butt whipping now because I'm glad Sark now understands the assignment. And there were 11 guys that are on this team now that were on that team then. 9 of them were starters. That's important. And it's important that's at 11 a.m. That also helps. But they don't have with the vitriol and the angst. And it's real, guys. I compare, we all watch the Star Wars films, right? And you got the dark side of the force and you got the light side of the force, right? The good side of the force. Well, Arkansas uses the dark side of the force, I think, as well as anybody, right? And that's directed at Texas. And it's all about the hatred they have. They're able to bottle it up and they're able to replicate it and they're able to weaponize it. And for Texas, I don't think Texas had that same angst and vitriol and hatred for Arkansas. I remember talking to Craig Way about it because he's a good friend of mine and I used to work with Craig Way. And he tells a story that he was one day when he was calling the game out there at Arkansas in Fayetteville, he's walking along and he's walking with some friends of his, and then some guy recognizes him and says, hey, I think that's Craig Way. And Craig thinks, oh, it's a fan, obviously. Let me go say something to the fan. Let me go holler at him. I'm not rude that way. Craig turns around and there's a sandwich thrown in his head. All right. That's how Arkansas fans feel about Texas. Even the fan, they hate the play-by-play guy. They hate everything about Texas. And even Sam Pittman admitted, he said, yes, we do hate Texas more than we love ourselves. And Texas has to be ready for that because I think that does give them an emotional advantage in this game. And some guys play better with emotion. And Sark says that you want to play with emotion, but not play emotional. And I think for Texas, the sooner they can get emotion removed from the equation in this game, get it back to the X's and O's and the matchups and the Jimmys and Joes within the chalk lines, that's when Texas will pull away. But early on, Texas makes some mistakes, keeps that crowd in it, allows that Arkansas offense to have some life. They're going to keep riding that emotional wave, and you may look up, and that emotional wave may take them dead into the second half and make this a game. You don't want that.
Rod, for a defense that lost Sweat and Murphy and Overshone and others, they seem to be statistically better this year than last year. How?
Wow, that's that's a multifaceted, multifactorial answer I'd have to give you. I think it starts, number one, with the secondary. They made several changes in the back end there. They moved Ja'Day Barron, who was at a nickel at the slot corner for them. They moved him to the outside corner. Malik Muhammad became a starter late in the season last year. So that was an improvement in the secondary. They brought in Andrew Makuba from Clemson, another starter there. Michael Taft has been great for him back there. Derek Williams, who's now hurt and out for the season, he's improved. And Jalen Gilbo is a new starter in the secondary at nickel in place of Ja'Day Barron. So a lot of new faces in the secondary. Remember, that was the big issue last year. You're one of the worst pass defenses in college football, and you could not defend the vertical pass. So this crazy, just a turnaround 1 year, and you're the best pass defense in the country now. Like, that is a hell of a turnaround. So I think that's number one. I think the second part is the edges for Texas. You're deeper on the edges. You brought in Trey Moore, had his best game versus Florida. Ethan Burke, a young Colin Simmons now. Barron Sorrell is probably the most consistent guy. But you're right, the true, I think, really remarkable thing about the defense is that they don't seem to miss Tavondre Sweat and Byron Murphy as much as we thought. And the assumption was there would be a hole and a void there. Give a lot of credit to Alfred Collins. That guy's going to play on Sundays. Give a lot of credit to Vernon Broughton as well. And then the guys they brought in. And Sark said at the spring game, Sark said, we need big humans on the defensive line. and they went out and got them. They went and got 3 via the transfer portal. They went and got Lole. They went and got Bill Norton, Tia Savea, and Savea hadn't played that much, but Bill Norton and Lole have been more than up to the task of trying to replace Devondre Sweat and Byron Murphy. Now, you can't replace the dynamic presence those guys had, the ability to demand a double team. They were both war daddies on the defensive front. So they don't have 2 war daddies, but they do have one of the best D lines as a unit and depth wise in all the country. So it is remarkable. I'm with you. I assumed, they're gonna have a weakness in the interior of that D line. That's not been the case. Anthony Hill as well, guys, playing like one of the best linebackers in the country right now as well.
Thank you, buddy. Great to have you on the show when we can, Rod. Keep up the great work and hope to have you down the road because who knows, they've got, 3 regular season games, conference. Right. They got a maybe SEC championship game. Heck, they have 4 possible playoff games, which is kind of hard to fathom, or they might have just 3. Who knows? Or if they don't take care of business, maybe just 1. Thank you very much for your time.
Hey, thanks, fellas. Anytime y'all need me, let me know. Have a good day.
Rod Babers with us from the Horn in Austin, former Texas cornerback, with a lot of good stuff from him. Great questions for him, too. When we come back, Craig Smoak off the radar, and this is 365 Sports. Had a conversation today by email with the owner of the local Marco's Pizzas in Waco, Bob Mock. 5 locations in Waco: Woodway, Hewitt, Robinson, China Spring, and also in Belmead. The fastest growing pizza brand in America. I went and Googled Marco's Pizza growth, and sure enough, one article after another about the fastest growing pizza brand in America. You go online if you want, and you could order and go pick something up on your way home, or you could also, of course, have them deliver what you want, whether it's pizzas or sandwiches or salads and much more. And they've always got some codes for various specials today, and then maybe tomorrow, and then they just keep rotating what you want. Wings also available. Bob Mock, the owner, he's been in the pizza business for a long time. I was going to say his entire life, but that wouldn't be possible. But he's been in the pizza business, worked for companies, and watched how they did what they did and took the best of what he saw, experienced, and put his own ideas into it too. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it.
If you want quality and personalized service for all your air conditioning and heating needs, call Tradesman Services. They're a family-owned and operated company that has served Texans for over 30 years. Tradesman offers maintenance plans starting at just $12 per month and a free service call for all new customers. They're also experts in geothermal design, installation, and service. Visit them online at coolingwaco.com.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at alliancebanktexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgan Ford. It's that time of year, it's football season. Bird Colgan Ford is a proud supporter of the best high school football right here in Central Texas. BK Ford is proud to sell the #1 selling truck in Texas, the F-Series truck, 47 years in a row. Come see the largest showroom in Texas and experience better at Bird Colgan Ford.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
This is Craig Smoak's Off the Radar, presented by Alliance Bank. They take pride in making banking easy. AllianceBankTexas.com.
Welcome into Off the Radar here on 365 Sports. Taking a look on Tuesdays and Thursdays at around 4:45 at some grab bag stories. And by that, I mean just some stories that kind of pick off from the last couple of days and things that are outside of our normal purview. But a little bit of college football sprinkled in always. Although today, yeah, there will be some of that just because I'll get to the schedule later on tonight, which is a very short schedule for college football. But I'm actually also going to start off with a college football story because I'm going to wrap around to something we never finalized in discussing, but we had briefly mentioned it when talking about BYU and Utah. And this is a couple days old, but again, I only do this on Tuesdays and Thursdays, so I'm just now getting to it. And that's the fact that there was a person arrested for throwing the water bottle on Saturday night at Rice-Eccles Stadium that hit BYU's cheerleading coach and injured her towards the end of that game. William Gardner, 18 years old, faces one charge of assault, a Class A misdemeanor for throwing the bottle that hit cheerleading coach Jocelyn Allen as she was on the sidelines of the game on Saturday night. According to the University of Utah Department of Public Safety, Gardner is not a student at the school. So he's just an 18-year-old that was there at the game. There was video of the incident. You probably saw a lot of that circulating on Saturday and Sunday, and you can see it pretty clear as day, the cheerleading coach getting hit. Here's the thing. He was young 18-year-old William Gardner, not a student at Utah, but he was in the suite with his family when he threw the water bottle. And the following day, it was his father that actually alerted University of Utah police that his son was the person who had thrown the water bottle. So double whammy of a weekend for the Gardner family of going to watch that game, sit in the suite like they're going to beat the Cougs. And I don't know, he's not a student, but I would imagine they were rooting for Utah sitting in that suite. But either way, young man gets arrested. He's not going to jail for life, but just a really stupid decision. And we've had like a handful of these throwing incidents now this year. We had Texas versus Georgia. We've had Colorado. We've had Texas Tech on a couple of different occasions. We've had BYU and Utah. All of a sudden, hey, Big 12 crowds, like, got to get it together. Now that I'm thinking about it, Colorado, Lubbock, Salt Lake City. But, yes, there has been an arrest in the last couple of days. I just wanted to circle back around to that. And I thought it was interesting that, it was his father that actually turned him in.
You know what? That's some next level parenting right there. When you say, like, here's the thing, his son, I promise you, embarrassed him, and then there was like the outcry for it. It hit somebody. You got to teach the kid a lesson.
You could blind somebody. You could.
Well, it knocked her out from what I gathered. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like all of a sudden, and you've brought up the places that have had these incidents and. The Texas game against Georgia. It's just what's happening here. But good and good for him. He might have been worried about losing the suite where he was.
Yeah. I mean, how angry do you have to be in the suite and throwing stuff like? I'd start to maybe. Well, actually, that thought has never crossed my mind at any game I've been a part of. Had I been at that Oregon-Oklahoma game a few years ago, might have thrown some stuff, but. No, that's just a stupid decision, and this will be out there for everyone to Google every time he goes to apply for a job in the future. 18, so you're probably not thinking all that clearly, but Jocelyn Allen is okay, but she did lose consciousness when she got hit by that water bottle, and it's all right there on video. Standing on the sideline, gets absolutely pegged, and apparently, had to be looked at by doctors for symptoms of a concussion. So I don't know if there's been any further follow-up on that. There wasn't anything last I checked from the BYU spokesperson side of things, and I don't know that she had responded to reporters either after the initial reporting on it. So, there you go. Just following that up. So William Gardner, man, your dad turns you in. You probably aren't going to have that suite again, or at least you're not going to be allowed in that bad boy. And I'm assuming you're a Utah fan, so what a weekend, pal.
And he's not even a student.
No.
He's just a fan. And who lost his mind. Yep.
So that happens, and you're 18, so I'll cut you a tiny bit of slack, but there really does need to be and I don't cut much slack at all. I want to throwing stuff like that. That's just not cool. But I know 18-year-olds aren't thinking things through clearly, so hopefully this is a learning lesson, and this person doesn't make any kind of dumb decisions like that in the future. And I'm just really glad that Jocelyn Allen is okay. So there was something off the radar. Meanwhile, an interesting story in terms of a return to media prominence, John Gruden is back in the media, and he kind of has been after being basically, was it blacklisted, would be fair to say, by the NFL. He just kind of went away for a while after the whole controversy and him using racist terms, and I kind of forget at this point what all even that entailed, but he got ran out of the league from his own actions, really, and just kind of went away. He sued the NFL, and was really, that was the updates we were getting on John Gruden there for a while, was his ongoing lawsuit with the NFL. And then he started his own YouTube channel, and I saw videos of him doing that. It seemed to be getting a pretty good reaction. I guess it's getting a great reaction, although I haven't kept up with it because he is now joining Barstool Sports. Apparently, Dave Portnoy confirming the news today that Adam Schefter had initially, and Portnoy did that, posted a video of the Spider 2 Y banana Gruden, go-to when it comes to the verbiage that he uses, and he was talking to, he was drawing it up for Barstool folks, the employees there. It's a multi-year deal, and they're obviously ecstatic about it, but John Gruden kind of having a career resurgence after the whole, email debacle and everything that entailed a few years ago.
Yeah, he will never coach in the NFL as long as Roger Goodell's there, right? Didn't he take shots at the commissioner too? And
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not his best day, but also, the fact that the NFL leaked that to take off pressure off of something else was
to the Redskins.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that was all just bad, but his breakdowns and his X's and O's stuff is second to none. I mean, he's really good at that. If you remember from Monday Night Football, he's an odd duck, that's for sure. But that's going to work well at Barstool. I think it's a probably good match.
Massive audience. He'll be good at that because he is, as you guys mentioned, the analyst work and stuff, and he's got that glare and that look. They'll take care of him, and he's back in it.
Yeah, so, just if you're a fan of his, I suppose, then that's of interest to you. If not, then, it's off the radar. But I thought that was an interesting note today. So John Gruden kind of having a media resurgence. Definitely won't be on the NFL sidelines probably ever again. But, yeah, if y'all remember, those emails got leaked. He's had the lawsuit ongoing with the NFL and Roger Goodell. And those emails were to who?
They were to Bruce Allen.
Bruce Allen, who was the Commanders' team president, or was the key word there. And that was, all uncovered with the investigation into the Daniel Snyder workplace allegations and everything that came with that. So just a messy situation. Turned out really messy for John Gruden. But now he is with Barstool Sports. So if that's up your alley, then have fun with that. And if not, then we move along to a real freak show this weekend. Did you guys realize this weekend, along with college football and the NFL and I guess, NBA regular season, that on Friday night, there is the long-awaited, and I don't know how anticipated it's been, Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson boxing match.
I've built my whole week around it, Craig.
Have you now?
Yes. So, we're going to do charcuterie.
Nice.
Maybe some nice.
No, you're not going to do that
wine.
for a Paul and Tyson fight.
No. I knew it was coming up, but part of me does want to watch it. I usually don't care what Jake Paul does.
Yeah.
But I don't like him at all. And I know Mike Tyson is 60 years old, but he's still Mike Tyson. And if he can rear back and give him one, good one from 1986, then I mean, that would be worth watching. I don't know if Mike can still do that, but I've watched Mike hit the speed bag on the internet. He can still punch pretty hard. So
yeah, he's not quite 60. He's 58.
Yeah.
So he's close.
Yeah.
I'm not quite 70, but I'm 65.
Yeah.
He's still. The problem, I think, with him, and that it started to be the case ever since he lost that fight to Douglas, and I know that's forever ago, is a guy like that, yes, he can still punch with power. The problem is he gets moved around a lot by bigger bodies. And a lot of the bigger bodies that he fought down the stretch just started to let him wail at them, and they would wear him down, and I don't know what's going to happen in this.
Yeah, I mean, it's a total freak show fight, which is what most of the Paul brothers are involved in when it comes to the boxing side of things is it's not like, and what I mean by that is it's not just clear cut like guys in weight class, guys similar age, guys that are proven. It's like the dude who's 30 years older, the guy who's not really a real boxer, but he's an MMA guy, but he's got to box under those rules. Like there's always a catch to it, right?
Yeah, no, there is.
And when there hasn't been, you lose, like with the Fury fight. But, it's Jake Paul and Mike Tyson. This was supposed to happen back in the summer. Mike Tyson had his ulcer flare up, and that's what caused the delay until now. So that is tomorrow night. It's a Friday night fight on Netflix. As Netflix starts to delve into their live programming, this is the kind of stuff that you're going to get offered. They're also going to have Monday Night Raw, WWE starting up in the early part of the year. They've got an NFL game as well. So they're starting to dip into it. But, yeah, that is tomorrow night on Netflix. There's some undercard action as well. But Paul is 27. Tyson's 58. So there is that big age disparity. Tyson,
you think?
50-6. With 44 knockouts in his career. Paul is 10-1 in the 4 or so years that he has been boxing professionally since 2020. So they've hyped this up as like if Paul beats him, it's the greatest thing. And I know that the young kids buy that because they don't know any better. But I'm watching Mike and like, dude, this is where it's at now. They're doing the press conference for it, and Paul's like goading him and talking about how boring he is. And it's like, he's 58. He's ready to go to bed, not do this press conference. Yeah. And he's not like Paul, like got some special jewelry, like an ear cover that's all diamond studded and, trolling. And it was pretty funny, but that's just not the Mike you're facing, pal. Like the Mike you're facing had to postpone this for his ulcer flare up a few months ago. Yeah. And he's tired and doesn't want to talk trash at the press conference because I think he's just cashing a paycheck more than anything.
Yeah.
But there is a sliver of me that is interested in like, if Mike can just rear up one punch.
I know, it's the same way.
Just one punch, baby.
Just one. I do feel bad that Mike had to bail out earlier because of an ulcer, but I would have loved to be on the other side of that phone call and listen to Mike Tyson say the word ulcer.
Yeah,
but,
ulcer.
Yeah.
Also,
thing about it, he lost to Kevin McBride the last time he had a legitimate fight. It was 2005.
Who is Kevin McBride?
Big dude, I think probably from
2005?
England.
Yeah.
I think he's a big dude from England. I think he was a 6'6" fighter. He's just so guys like that. How big is Jake Paul? He's a pretty big dude, right?
Yeah, he's a pretty big guy.
He's 6'1". I thought he was taller than that. So
he wants you to think that too.
Yeah, it's not a big body, but those guys have bothered him, and Tyson's one of those, and that was in 2005.
Yeah, I don't have much hopes for this. It's a freak show, like I said. It's a massive payday for both guys. It'll get a lot of attention. I mean, we're talking about it a little bit just because it's very much off the radar. But yeah, the age disparity, and even looking at Mike, like he's cut for a 58-year-old, but he's not cut like the old Mike. So it's just. I don't know how much power he still even has. I mean, I know he could knock my ass out with no problem. Like, that's not saying anything, but I don't know how that goes on a Friday night on Netflix in a boxing match with a guy who actually does have some experience and youth and all of that on his side. So that is tomorrow night. As I mentioned, there's an undercard, but it all gets underway at like 7 o'clock Central Time for those that might be interested in that. And I don't know if this will be like every other boxing and UFC card where the card starts at 7 and I care about the main event. So I'll like at 10 o'clock, I'll start to pay attention a little bit to where we are in the card. I'm not sure if that's how it'll go, but I am somewhat interested in what happens there. All right. Tonight, NFL, Commanders and Eagles on Amazon. Did you even know the Commanders were playing tonight?
Yeah, I did, because I kind of cleared off some things that I normally do for high school coverage for the website. So I would have a chance to watch it on, Amazon Prime or whatever.
It's not whatever. It's Amazon Prime,
Amazon Prime. I'm a little bit worried about them about to hit a free fall, guys, because they had that bad loss. Even though Pittsburgh's good, they just seemed like they played with them. They played with their food. Seemed like to me in the fourth quarter.
Brian Robinson's back tonight, though, so that's
I know.
That's a big thing.
I don't know.
Scary Terry had a really good game, so
they have this game. Then they play the Cowboys. They can't beat Dallas, no matter how bad of a mess Dallas is. So this is a critical game from what could have been 8-2 or whatever to what could be 7-5 if they're not careful. But I am going to watch the game tonight.
Well, they're 7-3 right now. Eagles are 7-2. It's in Philadelphia. Eagles are 4-point favorites as it stands right now. But it has been a great. I mean, like, I'll put it this way, guys. If this was last year or I don't know, like the previous 10 years, I would not care that much about this. But I am more interested now because they're actually competitive and they actually have somewhat of a real leadership in place. But they've made things interesting. That loss to the Steelers was a bummer, but this is a big game in the NFC East. This is 7-3, 7-2. So Commanders and Eagles tonight on Amazon Prime Video. There's one college game, East Carolina 5-4, trying to get bowl eligible out in the American at Tulsa, who is 3-6. You can watch that at 6:30 on ESPN. So college game gets underway, NFL game a little while after that. And my final update here, FSU quarterback commit Trem. No, I'm just kidding, Paul. I'm not going to do that to you.
Decommitted.
He's thrown some bombs.
No, look, I'll tell you. So Tremble Jones decommitted, and it looks like Carter Smith of Bishopville High School is going to come and take his place.
That's your alma mater in Naples.
So there we go.
Fort Myers.
Yeah.
Fort Myers, yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy. Look, there are some great people that went from Bishopville to Florida State. None of them athletically, but this would be a great jump for us.
All right. I was trolling a little bit there, but yeah, FSU did lose a quarterback commit, but I guess there is a bright side to it, so that's great. And my final thing for you is briefly, the Combine is going to stay in Indianapolis for the next couple of years, which is not a huge deal, but they hold on to that event.
It is.
You think so?
Yeah, I think it is. A lot of other things have moved, and maybe they'll end up one year, they'll go to Chicago or Nashville or whatever. It's the one thing that seems like it's been pretty much status quo, and they do a great job of it. And one of the things about Indianapolis, and we've been there, Super Bowl, and I was there for the Final Four and the tournament, is that everything is almost contained underneath, like long walkways that are inside to prevent you from bad weather. That's why I think it's such a great deal.
Well, it is staying through 2026.
Good
So if you've never been, but you would like to go to the Scouting Combine in Indy, maybe it stays there for another 30 years, but it is guaranteed to stay through the next couple of years because obviously 25 is upcoming and then 26, and then we'll see after that. Maybe they do tour it around like the circus or like the NFL draft. But the real final note that I had was a follow-up on the Rays and their stadium situation that I kind of broke down for you guys the other day, the panels that got ripped off during the hurricane and all of the millions of dollars in damage that caused. They cannot play there this year, but they have found their quick fix and their solution for what the Rays are going to do this year. And there's a lot of facilities down in Florida, and they are picking one of those, and they are going to play at the Yankees spring training field for the 2025 season. So they get to stay in Tampa, but yeah, they will play at the Yankees Steinbrenner Field in northwest Tampa, which is next to the Buccaneers Stadium. And it only seats 11,000, but it's the Class A Tampa Tarpons affiliate, so they've had plenty of baseball played there, and that's where you can find the Tampa Bay Rays home games this season is right there at Steinbrenner Field. So the Yankees throwing an assist. And before the Rays existed and before the Marlins existed, the Yankees had a bunch of fans down in Florida. It's them and the Braves. Had massive amounts of fans.
They still do.
Yeah, they still do. But
and by the way, that is a shrine. That minor league, that park that they play in during the spring training games is freaking beautiful.
It's great. It's great. I will tell you this. I believe that most Rays fans have a crumpled up Yankees jersey
probably
in their closet that this year got shaken out, and it was like, yeah, Yankees forever.
Yeah, like an old,
I never doubted
God
you.
Rest his soul.
So they kind of go back
and
forth because Steinbrenner made Tampa Yankee Town.
Oh, it did. Yeah,
I mean, it was absolutely a Yankees town. If you went before 1997, 98, whenever the first year of the Rays was, if you were in Tampa and just walking around, it was Yankees, 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 Yankees. So, yeah, he made it that way.
So the Yankees will still spring train there. The Rays will be in Port Charlotte, and then when the season rolls around, they'll make all the changes, and they'll go take over that, and that will basically become their full-time stadium for the 2025 season. The Yankees aren't just doing it for free. They're getting $15 million.
Well, they should.
Yeah, well, of course,
yes. Lease agreement.
So they're getting $15 million out of this deal. And, yeah, Tampa will be using Steinbrenner Field for the 2025 season.
You know what's going to be a problem for that, though? You know what's right down the street?
A bunch of strip clubs.
Oh, yeah, and the famous ones are
not
like
far
right
from Raymond James at the airport.
there.
No, it is. It's a great place. All right, Craig, that it?
That's a few things off the radar.
That's awesome for the Yankees to do that, even if they got paid, and they should. The last win that Mike Tyson had was in February of 2023 against Clifford Etienne. Clifford Etienne is
Travis's father.
Listen to this. He's currently serving a 105-year prison sentence without the possibility of parole. Oh, dear God. All right, when we come back, we're not done. We'll have Mickey Spagnola around the corner, but next, an NIL discussion after the stories today about Bryce Underwood and about Mateer at Washington State, and we want feedback from you. We'll come back with that. This is 365 Sports. And since 1943, when they opened up their doors, selling product for you, pipe, steel, and metal. And as everything changed over the last, for them, 81 years, Pioneer Steel and Pipe was a great go-to place to find the product you needed to build something, commercial or real estate. Maybe you have a large ranch or somewhere and you needed to build fences or an entryway. Whatever it might be, they have that too. If it might be something, a metal building where you live, maybe in your backyard if you've got a pretty nice spacious yard, or that's what you build to live in, like a barn dominium. That's what they do. Pioneer Steel and Pipe since 1943. Location is just east of I-35 in Waco on Highway 6 and Loop 340. Pipe, steel, and metal. They can help you make sure you have what you need or who you need to contact to build something for you that they know you can rely on and be reliable contractors. PioneerBoys.com.
When it comes to me and my money, I know the way it should be. I need a partner I can count on. That's Genco and me. Genco is my credit union. They're always there for me. They're people I trust. They treat me like family. My money, my future, my credit union. Genco.
Automatic Chef is your local vending, office coffee, and micro market provider, delivering outstanding service to break rooms all over Central Texas for over 50 years. Automatic Chef brings the best products to your location at the best prices. With hundreds of choices in fresh food, coffee, snacks, and drinks, let Automatic Chef tailor a break room solution to your needs. Make break time great again with Automatic Chef. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchef.com.
Bambi SQ, what is the number one reason or two or three reasons, Bambi, that people should contact House of Travel?
As a travel agency local here in Waco, we can take care of all your bookings, your payments, answer your questions, help you when there are issues or problems, things that may come up that you don't know what to do or how to fix them. People don't realize we don't charge a fee for what we do. It doesn't cost you extra to use a travel agent. We're just here. We get paid by the tour companies and the cruise lines to represent them. But you have an expert on your side that's here and local, and you have a name and a face to put together to help you with anything that you may need. Give us a call. We can price things for you. We can help you answer questions. We can make it simple, easy, and one stop.
Your knowledge of all the years you've done this and then spit it back to them or give them options?
It helps us to kind of know a date range, a budget, what your goals are and what you want to see and do on your vacation. And then that helps us to know what to look for, and we can narrow down and help you make the best choices for your vacation so you get the best value. You get exactly what you were hoping for, and making sure that it's taken care of with a carefree, easy, simple for you type vacation. I've been doing this for over 40 years. Every day I learn something new. I experience new situations and things that I can help take care of for people, whether it's just making sure you get the best deals and find the best vacations, or whether it's to solve that problem like you've got a flight that's being canceled and don't know what to do. There's weather coming up. Should I cancel my trip next week because of the hurricane? Those are things that we take care of and you don't have to worry about. You've got somebody that you can rely on that you know is an expert, knows what we're doing, have been doing this for a long time, so that you're not questioning, okay, does the person on the other end of the phone really understand what I'm asking or know how to find those deals? You've got an expert, and we are here to take care of that.
For more information, go to houseoftravelwaco.com. Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. Don Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Want to send a message to the show? Jump in the Rudy's Country Store and Barbecue chat room.
All right, so this is a topic with Bryce Underwood in that story about $10.5 million NIL, the five-star quarterback currently committed to go Tigers at LSU. And then John Mateer, Washington State from Little Elm High School in Texas, and the possibility he's at a seven-figure offer. None of that is surprising. What made me think about this, and I know that we're going to just go 25 years. So let's just say 1990 and beyond. The NIL,
35 years.
Okay, 2000 and beyond. Let's do that. 2000 and beyond. With the NIL only started, 4 years ago. Before NIL was a thing, which college player from 2000 to about 2020, in your opinion, would today be the most in demand when it comes to NIL? Now, I brought up two names off the top. To me, Reggie Bush and Johnny Manziel. Manziel was making NIL, and so was Reggie Bush. It was just called different. So I mentioned Tebow. I'm just talking about value. It's not the best players, although those guys all won Heisman trophies. Paul, Craig, your thoughts about who among the last 25 years prior to NIL would have been the most in demand?
And Ndamukong Suh. He's at it. Look, Walter Nolan cleaned up at Ole Miss this year.
Yeah, he did.
And no offense to Walter Nolan, he's a fine player. But Ndamukong Suh was the best college defensive tackle of our last probably 30 years. I mean, there's no one who is as good and as dominant as him, and he would have been able to at least get Nebraska to pay him that much money, and if he wanted to, jump out and get it. Yeah, I was thinking about this today, about guys, and you said from 90 on. My first one was to go from a lower level up would have been Steve McNair.
And that was another way just earlier, not to go to the same name. But, yeah, someone that was not a part of what would have been 5 conferences, the Power 5, somebody that might have been huge NIL demand.
Yeah.
I'd say Tim Tebow because he's the only one that walks on water, and I just think that's an invaluable trait for a guy to have. And
I mean, just imagine, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, Tebow would definitely have been up there, although I feel like his popularity in high school was nowhere close to the level that it reached when he was at Florida. Like, he was a big-time recruit, but at least I don't recall at that stage.
But he's from St. Augustine, and he went to Gainesville, so he was a big-time recruit in that little circle.
Yeah.
But, like, before, like, maybe all the way to Ocala, they cared about Tebow. And then when they saw Tebow play, then that circle grew and grew and grew and grew.
Yeah, then eventually became Tebow and what we knew to be like this, I mean, this ESPN obsession for about 3 years there, to the point of nausea. I mean, watching SportsCenter. Now it's been LeBron for like the last 20 years, but Tebow there for a while. It was like you could not turn on the TV and not see something Tebow related. So, yeah, he wouldn't be my first choice because I do think that he blew up like after his play started. So are you talking about as a recruit or just in general?
Yeah, someone like there's been a couple of you that this is not who your favorite player is. Let's get real here. Let's talk about who would have been the absolute most pursued if there was NIL. I mentioned Johnny Manziel. I mentioned Reggie Bush. Hold on. Someone mentioned Vince Young. Vince Young really was good. He was good. He was good early, but he really took off at the next to the last year. So you wonder, was he going to leave Texas anyway? They would never have allowed him to leave. He was phenomenal, but I'm not so sure he would have demanded the highest NIL because he would have been taken care of in Austin.
Yeah, that's why I'm just kind of confused on the question, is because Johnny Manziel was nobody as a recruit basically. So when I think of NIL, I think of recruiting. Like, that's the whole thing is getting the guys through NIL. That's why we talked about Nico. That's why we talked about Underwood. He's a recruit. So we don't talk about it like, but I guess you're talking about John Mateer.
Yeah, but I brought up Mateer as just another way. I think what we could do here, and
do you understand where I'm coming from, though? Because there is that, because the conversation is like, who's the biggest star who would have commanded? But that's all recruiting.
No, absolutely. And by the way, in the chat, please listen to what I'm asking you to do. We don't want anybody before 2000. Otherwise, we could go on for hours with this. There's no OJ, no Earl. That's way before the timeline of what we said. I want to kind of tighten this up if we can.
Old Barncat has a good one, Jordy Nelson.
Not in the biggest conversation for like biggest.
No.
I saw also Darren Sproles, great player, but not.
No, but I do think that if you look in the who's going to be tampered with, who could like jump into the portal, like what they would do, that's the question it has to be, because recruiting is kind of a different thing. Like the NIL that we're talking about, like Bryce Underwood's a recruiting thing. John Mateer, he's been recruited. He's signed.
Yep.
Now he's being, clandestinely re-recruited before he decides to go in the portal or not, which nobody knows if he's going to do yet. So, I guess people would assume he would, right? But they're not going to, but we're not going to know until he does. But he's already allegedly got an offer from someone for 7 figures. So who would, I think the question is, who are those guys? So mine would be in Dominican Sue. If he got out of the if he left Nebraska and got in the portal, he would be able to demand some cash. But he probably would already had some in the first place. So on the John Mateer scale, you have to look at other ones like that. Like who's a guy that, had they gotten out, could have gotten some big money.
Yeah, there's no boundaries other than for too many of you to listen to what we're talking about when it comes to the date, the timeline. Otherwise, we can go back to, my God, so many others. Garrett?
All right, so from the way I'm looking at this, I'm thinking about a player at a school that's not a group of 5 who would have an opportunity to
Power 5.
Power 5.
Yeah.
That's getting an opportunity to come up. And through this timeline, what about a player like Colt Brennan with what he was able to do at Hawaii?
Yeah.
If he's put those numbers up, would somebody want to pay him to come and transfer the way you're doing a Mateer? Is that kind of where we're looking at?
Yeah, I think that if we do it that way, it makes you think a little bit deeper. Otherwise, again, the first thing I thought about when I even was driving home to the condo today, I was like, well, it'd be Johnny Manziel, Reggie Bush, Vince Young, whoever. So Kyle Visser, LaMichael James, Power 5. Oregon, fantastic high school. He was pretty much recruited out of high school at Liberty Hilo High School when he went to Oregon. Maybe this is just a dud.
I
don't think you guys want to play fair with me.
No, it's just kind of confusing.
We were confused. Now, but Garrett.
But McNair, by the way, was a. You mentioned McNair, did you?
Yeah, he was an HBCU, but he was pre-2000. He was 90.
Yeah, that's right.
6 or so. I don't know, maybe 94. But yeah, whenever Steve McNair came out, that was the one I thought about when you're putting on that scale of who was a superstar player that was at a smaller school that would have been able to do this and jump. Look, they are a power team right now, but they weren't when he played there. And LaDainian Tomlinson at TCU.
There you go. Yep.
Yeah, so if LaDainian Tomlinson was playing now at TCU and the circumstances were the same, where TCU is in the Mountain West, or I'm not sure, I think they were in the Mountain West when he was there. I don't know. They've been to a lot of conferences, unfortunately, for the
It could have been.
Frogs.
Yeah.
So if they were there and he runs for 1,500 yards as a sophomore or a freshman, believe me, Texas and A&M would have been like, oh, how do we not drive 90 miles away to find this guy?
When did Michael Vick play?
Well, he's a Virginia Tech, though. It's a power school.
No, when?
It was 99,
okay,
2000.
well, that's before. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And somebody brought him up.
Thanks for that person for crapping all over Virginia Tech.
Yeah,
They're
no.
in the national championship
But that's
game
why it's
with Michael
confusing,
Vick.
because it's easy to say who would be the biggest star to get money, but you're saying, no, that's not what I'm saying. It's a small Power 5. It's kind of I'll just say this. I get the spirit of it. It's just convoluted criteria, so it's making it difficult.
I'm going to give it some criteria.
Here's a name: Case Keenum.
Yes,
he would have been
there we
big
go.
time.
At Houston.
I mean, Lamar Jackson, I know he's
right?
at a Power 5, but if Lamar Jackson would have stuck around, every major school in the country would have been trying to line him up.
But, like, who is at, we'll say, G5 or ultimately not a blue blood at all?
Kellen Moore.
Yeah, Kellen Moore.
Kellen Moore.
Yeah.
At Boise State, all-time wins leader until Colt McCoy took that, and then somebody else then took that top of that mantle as well.
I mean, hell, if RG3, and again, that's why the criteria is kind of convoluted.
Yeah. That's why let's keep it at the G5 level. Who are G5 guys that could
after 2000
that could Cam Ward it?
Yeah.
Who's gonna win the Cam Ward award? Who could do that on that standard of went from the G5 and I'm like. He was not in the G5 last year, I know. He would be this year. But he was at, immaculate word. So, like, you go from incarnate word.
Yeah.
Incarnate word. He went from incarnate word to.
He's an immaculate player.
Yeah. Incarnate word to here. Who's that guy?
Yeah. Zona Tucson 93 said Cooper Kupp. I don't even know where he went to. Where did he go to college?
Cooper Kupp?
He's a heck. I love watching him play.
Eastern Washington.
Okay.
So he would have counted, I mean, to your point, he would have counted, and he probably would have commanded some pretty good dollars because he had a solid career. So, I mean, you're getting it more in the bullseye than we are throwing out some of these names in this criteria.
He went to Eastern Washington.
You know who would have? I'll tell you. Cowboys backup quarterback Trey Lance.
Oh, yeah. He
Oh,
would have got some big
absolutely,
money.
Yeah, Trey Lance.
Well, what about Carson Wentz?
Yeah, Carson Wentz and Trey Lance.
Right?
That does suck. I mean, those guys went on to make millions anyways as top picks. But, yeah, like those guys now would be getting courted if they had eligibility left by Miami and Ohio State and all the teams that you want to list off that have taken quarterbacks just this year and whoever needs them next year. And I think that's the tweet that I saw that really put it into perspective for me. And this was kind of going on during the whole realignment thing anyways when it became abundantly clear that there was no life raft coming right now for Washington State and Oregon State, is a tweet that I saw, and I wish I could remember who it was, but they said, so are we basically, after the John Mateer news came out, are we basically just like a minor league system for the big schools now?
I'm
and I know we've talked
that.
about that, but, I mean, that's the feeling now up there in Pullman is like, John Mateer, we go grab him from Little Elm in Texas, and he becomes a star, and now we got to worry about LSU or Michigan or whoever coming to knock on his door and say, hey, here's several $1 million. And just how do you compete with that on a regular basis? That's got to be difficult. But, yeah, it's a harsh realization and maybe new reality. We'll see.
Somebody said Joe Flacco, who was a Delaware hen, right?
Yeah.
He had a bunch of big numbers in college, yeah.
Carrie said Troy Smith, he was at Ohio State. He was a Power 5. So we're got to I got to bring this up. Can I bring this up? I know we got to take a break for
No, we have Mickey. He's already ready. So.
Okay. So in the forums the night before, I was about to interview Nikki Collin yesterday. And so in the forums, I put up a thread that said, questions for Nikki Collin. And the part was, please send me your questions. And I bolded in red and like asterisks and exclamation marks, you must email me. So I got 3 or 4 emails when I woke up the next morning. And then I said, I got to go to the forums and see. Knowing what I was going to see were several people that started asking questions inside the thread in the forums when it says email in bold. People don't read, do they? They don't read. And then they say, well, yeah, but you came back in here anyway, so why didn't you ask our questions?
Yeah.
Oh, my Lord. All right, we're joined by our great friend, Mickey Spagnola, DallasCowboys.com. Mickey, people don't read anymore. That was your job. You write. You want them to read.
They don't read anything anymore. They just listen. And I don't think they listen very well. That's why this world's in the situation it is right now.
One more name you're going to put in is Josh Allen.
Oh,
he was at Wyoming. But yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, Mickey, dark times for the Cowboys right now. I mean, it seems like everybody's hurt or like when people get healthy, then Dak Prescott goes out. What outside of trying to rally and get back in this thing, because I know as much as fans are like, team tank, players don't buy into that at all. They're going to play hard. This is their livelihood. They've got to get contracts in the future. Like, outside of seeing if they can rally something there, like, what do you expect to see out of the Cowboys here in the next couple weeks to try to do that?
Well, to try and do it, they need to be more productive offensively. Do you realize that, going into this season, they had a 16-game regular season winning streak at home. Now they got a 4-game losing streak at home. And the last time they scored a touchdown at AT&T Stadium was September 22nd. They scored 3 touchdowns against Baltimore in the fourth quarter. So somehow, some way, even though they don't have Dak Prescott around for the rest of the season, you just got to get this offense going. In this past game against the Eagles, if you guys remember, they had 2 first and goals at the 6, and they ended up with a field goal. Fumbled into the end zone for a touchback. They had 2nd and goal at the 3 and they ended up at the 5 and kicked a field goal. It's not like they didn't have the ability to drive the ball down the field. They did, but they haven't finished. So if they're going to pull out of this, and as you saw for a half, 3.5, 2.5 quarters, the defense was respectable against the 6th-ranked offense in the league that the Eagles had. But they couldn't score. And then when you can't score touchdowns and you keep falling behind like that, it makes it so much easier for the opposing offense to just kind of freewheel it. And then they end up piling up points.
Mickey Spagnola, DallasCowboys.com, Thursdays for us in the 5 o'clock hour.
What do you think is preventing Trey Lance from jumping into the starting lineup at this point?
Because he hasn't played any football. You guys were talking about what he did in college. He did it for 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
And then he gets drafted after COVID, which he played, I think, 2-3 games that year. And he goes to San Francisco, and he didn't play. And he didn't play last year. The snaps he got in the game this past Sunday night were the first NFL regular season snaps since week 2 of 2022. He just hasn't played much football. And for now, it would be like sacrificing him. He'd be a sacrificial lamb going in there starting. Now, think about this. They play Monday night, right? Then it's a short week to play a away game at Washington, and then an even shorter week to Thanksgiving. So you wouldn't really have that much time to prepare him until maybe after Thanksgiving. But we haven't seen anything that suggested that you're not throwing in the towel if you start him here immediately. What does that tell the rest of the guys, the veteran guys? Why should I go out and try if you're just trying to interview some guy for potentially next year? So, he doesn't have any experience. And think about it, you guys. When you're the 3rd quarterback, what do you think you get in practice?
Oh, nothing.
Maybe some scout team reps, maybe, because Cooper Rush would get all that. And then when Cooper Rush was going to start this past week, he got all the reps, and he probably got all the reps again this week. Now, I think what you can do, Paul, is give them a small package, what they had planned for last game. They were going to get him in there and let him use his legs, maybe run the ball, throw a quick out, something like that. But then when the game got, and it got away from him, and Cooper Rush, he will never admit it, and he didn't today. He had a little bit of a neck injury when he dove in there to try to recover his fumble, the second possession of the game. So they throw him in the fourth quarter. You see some things he can do, but there are other things. It's just he hasn't played enough football. And unfortunately, he played in the preseason, but it's preseason, and he was okay, and he was getting better, and then he had the 5-interception game, and you're sitting there going, well, I don't know about this.
How soon do you think Jonathan Mingo, I know he said he might be
Monday night.
Monday night? He thinks he's ready to go. He says Monday night. They got to work him in slow, and he is. I mean, they knew it was a next year trade anyway, but
right. But why wait till next year? Get him in there.
Well, yeah. No, I mean,
he started 14 games last year for Carolina.
Yeah. When I say a next year trade,
yeah,
it's not like the Cowboys. Dak called up after the trade and be like, "Hey, I've got terrible news for you." They knew. I mean, they knew.
And it wasn't like they traded to save the season, right?
Yeah. No.
So, but McCarthy said today he'd be available this week. So get him in there. Let's go. He's 6'2", 220, ran a 4.640 at the combine. I mean a 4.640. Excuse me. Think about that. And he can be a deep threat. How difficult is it to run a 9 route, right? Just go down the field fast as you can. We'll see if we can throw it to you. I would imagine, routes in the NFL are routes in the NFL. There's no chemistry to this thing. Just, get him in there. Let's see what he can do. He can't be any worse than their third and fourth receivers they've been using right now. So go for it. My books.
Mickey, despite what has been a bad year and may get worse, who knows, they do have Monday night against the Texans. Who has actually, or how long would the list be of players who have outperformed their expectations?
Well, I think we can start, and I don't know what the expectations were for somebody who hadn't played in the NFL, but DeMarvion Overshown.
Yeah.
I told him after the game that had the Cowboys, well, even if they had won the game, right? But even if they had lost the way they did, I said, you might have become the first NFC defensive player of the week on a losing team. He had 11 tackles, 2 sacks, 2 tackles for losses, and 2 quarterback hits. And that was in two and a half quarters before he hurt his bursa sack. Fortunately, that's all it was at his knee, and they expect him to play. But for sure, him. And I think the other guy that has kind of, come into his own, he hasn't had much of an opportunity, is Rico Dowdle, the running back. And I know that sounds weird just because they don't have a gobs of yards rushing, but he has started in 7 of the 9 games and has performed well. And if he's averaging 4.5 yards a carry, he just hasn't had that many opportunities to run the ball. So I think those 2 guys would jump out to me right from the start. And Enrico's not a young guy. This is his 5th year, but it's really his first opportunity to kind of be the lead back. Just because 2 of the years he was with them, I believe one year it was a practice squad, a little bit on the 53, and then he had 2 years that he basically was on IR for the entire year. And last year he was the backup running back. So, good for him. He was a pretty good running back coming out of South Carolina, although I think he came out with an ankle injury, and so he fell through the draft.
Mickey, Overshown, I thought, was keeping the Cowboys in the game in the first half, really, because he was a nightmare. And then eventually, defense can play as well as it wants, but if the offense can't move the ball, eventually they run out of gas.
Yeah, if you can't score touchdowns, right? Can't be kicking field goals. And that's all they've kicked is field goals in their last 2 home games. Detroit, what did they have, 9 points? And then this one, 6 points? And you're right, but defensively, I mean, what you were up against the Eagles this past game, you held them to 14-6 at halftime. You should have had two touchdowns instead of one of those field goals. You could have had 17 points. And the defense, they had held. Think about this: they had held the Eagles to. I think I figured 108 yards until that last drive at the end of the quarter when they drove 84 yards for a touchdown. So they were playing decently and good enough on defense that if you scored some points, then the second half teams can't come out and just go, freewheeling with no pressure and pile on points. So yeah, it's it seems like one week it's the offense, one week it's the defense, but the last few weeks has been the offense.
So what is it like? Obviously, they're a battered team and they're losing, and it's been a program that they haven't had many just bad years. They've had disappointing endings a lot. They've had a year or two when they just, a quarterback goes out, although Cooper Rush went 4-1 the last time Dak was hurt. They haven't been in this position very often, Mickey. What's it like right now in Frisco?
Yeah, the locker room's the locker room. The guys are the guys. They're, it's kind of when we get in there, I don't see anybody just sitting there moping around. It's still pretty lively. I think the hard part would be practice. And from what I understand today, they had a pretty lively, upbeat practice today. So that's a good thing. And you're right, David. COVID year, they went, 6-10? And before that, the worst season would have been 2015 when Tony Romo hurt himself twice that season, and they only won 4 games. But other than that, since Jason Garrett took over, at least they were 500, if not winning season, except for that 2015 season and then the 2020 season. So while they have not had success in the playoffs, they weren't just terrible. But again, if you go in that locker room, there's not a lot of guys that have been there for, a long period of time. We were talking about the 2016 season, and it's like, well, how many guys are still here on the team? Well, Dak's on IR, so he's will be not here. Zeke, DeMarcus Lawrence, Zach Martin. I think that's it. So this is something new to a lot of these guys who might have had successful college careers. And, it's 3-6. And again, you can't get to 500 and win 3 straight until you win 1 straight. And I think that's got to be the focus, one game at a time.
Mickey, you don't know a curtain guy that could help out Jerry so that the Dallas media and everybody stops talking about the sunshine?
But maybe you can get me somebody to learn how to block on the offensive line. Because if you look at those 3 plays that happened on that series, they blew blocks every time, including the sun play, right?
Yeah.
Cooper Rush is under duress because Jake Ferguson missed the block at the line of scrimmage. Then he missed the block on the first down play, and Cooper Beebe missed the block on the third down play. So the Sun gets all the credit or blame, however which way you're looking at it. But if you had executed right, none of that would have mattered. And think about this. Remember when I just said they had a 16-game home winning streak? Was the sun never coming through the windows?
No.
Yeah.
No. This is something that drives Cowboys fans. And
it's a pet cat for a big chunk of the Dallas media. The national media has now glommed onto it because they saw at a low point in the Cowboys season, they saw CeeDee Lamb miss one, but I remember Jason Witten missing one, and I've seen it happen. It's maybe happened 5 times, and the whole time the stadium's been open. The sun's always been there.
Yeah, and you know what? So what happens in baseball when an outfielder misses the ball because he loses it in the sun? Does everybody say, well, you got to put a roof on the darn place, right? Mm-hmm. It's, the sun's the sun, all right? And you know what? I'm not sure the NFL would let them alter the stadium with curtains like that. Because what happens if you know how they regulate the roof? If it's open, it's open. And the only reason it closes is if there's some ecclesiastic event going on outside the weather. So what if you start opening the curtains when the other team's going that way?
Yeah. Yeah, no.
The way the Giants used to do with that garage door at the end.
Yeah, they'd open it up or whatever, and it caused the wind tunnel, right? Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
God.
yeah, it's a great thing to argue about, and another reason if people want to jump on Jerry, they can jump on Jerry for that. But it ain't going to change, I guarantee you.
They've got way bigger problems than a window.
Well, he'll dig in on that thing too. But,
yeah.
And it's not just the sun, and I understand what happens because it comes in through the glass and it kind of reflects, and so or reflects whatever. Refracts, right?
Yeah.
It's sort of like when you're driving the car and you find out you need cataracts removed.
Don't know, Mickey.
Well,
Don't know.
It's like when you've had LASIK surgery and you get outside for the first time, either in the sun or at night with the moon, and it refracts. That's what it does. It looks different than it's not clear. It just kind of goes sparkle. It just kind of shatters in front of you is what it is. Yeah.
So my solution to it is just block when you're supposed to on the line of scrimmage, okay?
Thank you, Mickey.
Don't fumble the ball into the end zone.
Yep. When you're having a year like that, things like that happen.
And then David, like today, you got 8 players that did not practice because of injuries. And it's not one of those things where, okay, we're losing, no one wants to practice. These are a lot of young guys that want to be out there practicing. And they had 8 guys miss today, including one, Zach Martin on the offensive line. So, and Tyler Smith. So 2 guys.
Oh, great. 2 offensive linemen.
2.
Yeah. 2 starters.
Guyton's already banged up. So,
Yeah.
But Guyton came back miraculously and practiced fully today. But there was supposed to be competition at the left tackle position because Awesome Richards played awfully well in his place Sunday night. Well, he had to go and play guard because Tyler Smith was missing. And the guy that would have gone there and played guard, TJ Bass, had to play guard on the right side because Zach Martin was missing.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to suggest Zach Martin has lost a step, but he has been beaten down physically because his age and whatever else.
His shoulder, he's trying to play through it. The shoulder has been bothering him probably the majority of the season, and there's a lot of times he's not practicing on Wednesday to try to get to the game on Sunday. And this week, he didn't practice yesterday or today. Now, they got an extra day, so maybe he gets in on Saturday and is able to do something. But, to me, David, if you have 80% of Zach Martin, probably better than putting some guy that hasn't played in the NFL before.
Hey, look, I don't want Mickey to give us facts as to why they do. If they would just put a curtain up or some double limo window tint on the windows there, the Cowboys would have already had 6 more rings. Bottom line, it's the sun.
That easy, right?
Yeah, that's it.
They wish it was that simple.
No other place in America would this even be on the blip. It would not be. It would not be Santa
No one
Claus.
would care, right?
No. Yes. No.
The Jets are supposed to be the end all. People are picking them to go to the Super Bowl, and look what they're doing, and it's in New York.
Yep.
And you barely hear a peep out of what's going on there. But they understand. It's the Cowboys. David, I could remember, and this was several years ago, maybe 20, I don't remember, Ed Werder, who had been the beat writer for the Morning News and maybe for Fort Worth at a time, he said the reason we hate to cover the Cowboys is the reason we get to cover the Cowboys. And there's some truth to that their notoriety, good, bad, or otherwise, they're going to be front and center. And even when they're bad, then they're worse than anybody else when they're bad. So, I think I told somebody yesterday, I said I'm immune to this stuff. So just let's go.
Yeah, it's in your blood, man. You're numb to it. You're numb to it. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it, Mick. Be careful.
Hey, you know what? You had a good line there, and they all missed it when you said the guy was an immaculate player.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I said.
They just went right by. They didn't get it.
Nope, absolutely. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it, Mick.
See ya.
Mickey Spagnola on camera with us. Thank you for his time from DallasCowboys.com. They play Monday night home against the Texans. And then, of course, was it Thanksgiving? No, not Thanksgiving. It's not. They play Washington on the road, right? And then they come back for their game on Thanksgiving Day. The Josh Allen, Wyoming NIL part, whoever put that, I think it was Kyle Visser or somebody, that was a good one to add to that conversation.
Mr. Zero-star recruit, by the way.
God, he is such a battering ram of a player. He's so reckless, and it's so fun to watch. When we come back, Paul Catalina and his top 5. Waco Custom Marketplace, right now with what we have going on, with Thanksgiving around the corner, my goodness, they have holiday items on sale from half to pit to bone-in hams, whole raw, and whole smoked turkeys. You can call them. They have that in stock, and so if you want to get yours ordered now you better do it. It's been available now since, what is today, the 14th for 10 days, so get them while you can and get your Thanksgiving either hams or turkeys. But on top of that, the weekly specials this week, including pork, baby, and St. Louis ribs, select choice and prime brisket, and then also 10% off on all shrimp, fresh shrimp, and 10-pound smoky ridge links for $42 for the case. Chicken leg quarters if you want that too. They have all sorts of soup mix from Happy Valley. They used to have a soup mix there that was, actually it was for a casserole, chicken casserole, a chicken spaghetti casserole is the best I've ever had. And then all of a sudden that business went out of business during COVID. It breaks my heart because it was as good as I've ever tasted. Well, at Waco Custom Marketplace, it is the Bauer family. They also have the original store, which is, of course, a meat shop, and it delivers to restaurants throughout the state of Texas. But you can get what you want there, marinades and seasonings and so much more for tailgating and the holidays. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
For Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Welcome into Paul Catalina's Top 5. We're continuing our series from yesterday. Playoff continues, Red Flags Part 2, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Hey, the holidays are coming up. And if you get on one of their auctions, use our promo code 365sports. Can you imagine Thanksgiving, instead of turkey, you just have some delicious Wagyu ribeyes? I think that's a nice change. You don't always have to do turkey. You can still do stuffing and everything else, but have some Wagyu ribeyes or whatever you want at the auction when you find it there at TexasBeefHouse.com. Number 5. Ole Miss's injuries. Ole Miss finally got their signature win for Lane Kiffin, beating Georgia last week. And they did it with a very depleted roster, which was doubly impressive. But they're going to need all those guys back, particularly wide receiver Trey Harris, who's an absolute superstar if they want to make hay in the playoffs. They need depth because you're going to have to play week after week after week, and attrition is going to be a factor. But right now, if Ole Miss can get healthy, they are absolutely a team to be trifled with in the playoffs. They have the depth and the weapons when they're healthy, but right now, they're fighting through some of that. Number 4, Alabama. To put my finger on one thing, I would just say, who are they? Are they the team that stuck it to LSU? Or are they the team that lost to Vanderbilt and then lost again? Like, who are you? This is a team that's been wildly inconsistent at times this year. And, you know, if they can find their real identity, especially on defense, they've got Jalen Milroe on offense, they've got some playmakers like Ryan Williams, they can certainly win in the playoffs. But they don't really have that identity yet under Kalen DeBoer, and they're finding it, but they still have some times they can trip up along the way. Number 3, Ohio State. Will Howard, much like Carson Beck, although not to the same degree, Will Howard's played better of late than Carson Beck, but he has a bit of a history of stuff like this in big games where, ran, slid up the clock here on 3rd and 20, no way to get up in time and do any of this. Like it says here, bro pulled the deck, Prescott. Those are the things that happen. If you go back to the Texas game when he was at Kansas a year ago, similar things have happened. Will Howard's got to get better in those big moments. I would say he is the weak link on this Ohio State team, although I would say their defense not quite as good as maybe we thought it was going to be, but they can win games with that defense. Number 2, Indiana, the strength of their schedule. And I don't know why the Vanderbilt Commodore popped up here on this, but we're going to roll with it. Just focus on me, Garrett. Focus on me. Indiana is 10-0. They're fantastic. There's nothing bad I can say about them. But they have one playoff team on their schedule, and that's the aforementioned Ohio State. So what happens when Ohio State is there again, or they're playing a team like, say, Alabama or Georgia or Ole Miss or Tennessee or BYU? We don't know because they have not really played those teams. So will they get got when it comes time to play a team that's as strong as they are? Number 1, Tennessee. And I just love this gif of Ratley here, so I used it. But offensive consistency. Is Nico going to be healthy? Have they figured out what the other teams figured out early in the year when their offense went from high flying to difficult to run? If they can get that offensive consistency back with Nico Maliava, with the defense that they have, with Dylan Sampson and with Josh Heupel, they can certainly win in the playoffs, but they've got to be more consistent than they have been over the long haul of the season. It's been a little bit up and down for the Vols. That's going to do it for this top 5, and that's going to do it for this episode of 365 Sports, but I'll let Smokey tell you that in 2 seconds.
Well, 1-2. Here we go. By the way, Craig and I will be out tomorrow because of high school football. We got a playoff game. Do you know that Paul, he is about to, Midway's not favored. They're playing Waxahachie. This could be it for him tomorrow. Your trend-setting, quitting on me doing high school football has now trickled into his brain, and he really wasn't going to do games this year. Tomorrow night could be his last ever high school football broadcast.
It's look, I miss hanging out with you, but I will tell you, having Friday nights where you don't have to go to all these places, Smokey, one day it's going to happen to you. It's going to be very liberating. It's very liberating.
Yeah, I am not sure if tomorrow night will be the last night or not, but I've been doing this since I was 18. I think I caught enough time on the sidelines and in the press box to try and change it up a little bit and experience Friday nights in the fall for the first time in like 20 years and just see what that's like and see how different that makes life. So I'm excited about that possibility. I've had a lot of fun covering a lot of great teams, but I just need to, you know how it is, you just got to shake it up sometimes. I just got to shake it up.
Oh, you guys are both so soft.
No, not really at all. Just want to do something different. Don't want to hang out on the high school sidelines for another Friday night for another year, but I've had my fill and have a lot of great memories, and who knows, maybe they win tomorrow night and we have to have another conversation the following week. We'll see how far they go.
You guys, Garrett tried to get away, and then because we needed him, he came back in the loop, helping to produce our broadcast from right here in this 365 studio. Okay, thank you, Garrett. Appreciate it, man. And I tell you what, I don't know how many of you have noticed in the chat room. I haven't been back in the chat room in a little bit, but retired stockbroker, I will take whatever venison smoked sausage you have, any kind of Cajun twist to it. Thank you for that in the chat room. Garrett Ross, thank you.
Absolutely.
The graphics, Paul, you started it, and Garrett's doing it now.
He told me I sucked at it.
On the tweets, it really looks great. Appreciate that. Thanks to you in the chat room. Those of you who watch or listen, however you do, for Paul and Craig, I'm David Smoak, our great sponsors. Good night, 365 Sports.